All right, we're live right now. No waiting around for this one. Let's get the impeachment up here.
Scary debacle.
Now,
Schiff couldn't even show up
the
to
final
present his
vote
reports.
is supposed to
He
be
had to have
around
one of his staffers present it for him.
around now to
This
7 p.m.
impeachment is ripping our country in half. It's fatally
we're gonna
flawed
see.
on the process,
We're gonna see
the
what happens here.
substance, the intentions,
Basically,
and the consequences. It's a total
I'll be doing a lot of
shit show.
watching.
I encourage all my colleagues to vote
I'll
no.
also maybe pull up some. If it gets really boring and this goes on for a while, which is very likely since this has been going on all day.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Georgia.
I may pull up some links that I saved.
Madam Speaker, I yield 3
related
minutes
to
to the
this.
gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Meadows.
I'll also.
Recognized for 3
I'm
minutes.
open to super chats.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'll also just be in the chat in general.
Today, as we sit here debating
And, let's just
impeachment, they all
enjoy
wanna
this
talk
as much
about
as we
it's
can
the
together because it's kind of boring.
Constitution.
Let's be
It's
honest. But if you're watching it,
Alexander Hamilton.
this is maybe the best way to watch
The
it.
last 30 days, I've heard more
occasional
about
commentary
Hamilton
over top.
from my Democrat colleagues, and until then, the closest they ever came to Hamilton was a $10 bill.
Let me know if how the audio works out.
all of a sudden, what we have is these
Like if I'm
strict
talking now and I talk over
constitutionalists
him,
on the other
do
side
I
of the aisle.
sound okay?
Listen, this has nothing to do with the Constitution. It has nothing to do with anything but raw politics. There's only one person on the other side of the aisle that got 7 Pinocchios for not telling the truth. No one on this side of the aisle got that during this impeachment process, Madam Speaker. And the American people need to understand 2 key facts. The Democrats in control set their own rules of evidence.
I ate frozen
They said
pizza.
what we need to do for
Very,
impeachment is to
very
have
nutritional.
compelling evidence
Shockingly good,
and
though.
bipartisan support.
I got to get the brand.
Well, they don't
but,
have either of those 2 things. They
like
failed
here.
the rules that they
Sounds
made up
good?
themselves.
Okay,
We've
I
got
don't have to,
President
touch it.
Zelensky of Ukraine saying there was no pressure. We've got
There was
the
some
number
good,
2 guy in
there
Ukraine
was some
saying
good
there was no
frozen
pressure.
pizza. I also
We've got
got
the
some
number
beer
3 guy in
to
Ukraine.
enjoy
No
this,
pressure.
because
These
this
are the
is the only way to
supposed
really enjoy this.
victims of this alleged crime. And yet here we are supposedly having this
they've been going all
compelling
day.
evidence and facts when the best witness they had,
Just lying,
the very best
lying,
witness
lying.
they had to change his testimony twice. They mentioned him 611 times.
Turn them down
And
when I speak.
ultimately,
I don't want to mess up too. Yeah, I
he
don't
said,
want to
I
do that too much.
presume that that's
I
what
can
the
leave it
president
here.
meant. I can tell you that there are not facts here to support it, but what
around
is
minus-
more important than that,
minus
Madam
12, that
Speaker,
should be
is
good.
this. Because here we are today, we have bipartisan opposition to impeachment, not bipartisan
Super chat
support.
already. What's up?
My colleagues
Zachary
opposite
Fluke.
want the American
The
people
Republicans
to think
have
that
literally
this is a
argued
sad and
against
somber
abortion
day.
at the impeachment
Well,
debate.
this is a
At least
sad
3
day.
of them have done
It's
that.
a sad day
All
for
of
this
them are garbage
institution because
humans.
we've lowered the bar to
Unbelievable.
impeach a
And when I
president
say
that
unbelievable, I
continues
don't
to give us an
actually mean
economy
unbelievable. I just
that
mean,
not only is growing,
ridiculous.
but growing at levels that we have never seen
like that sweater.
in the history of our country. When we look at
Figure I should be comfortable
unemployment
for this.
at a level
If it
that
gets
is
too hot,
truly
then
remarkable,
I'll
they
change,
want to
but-
impeach. But it's another sad
for
day
now.
because now what they're doing is they're telling the American people that 233
thanks, Zachary, by the way, for
Democrats
your super chat.
deserve to decide who the president of the United States should be and disenfranchise 63 million voters. When all is said and done, when the history of this impeachment is written, it will be said that my Washington Democrat friends couldn't bring themselves to work with Donald Trump, so they consoled themselves instead by silencing the will of those who did the American people. And I yield back.
Gentleman from California.
Madam Speaker, I'm proud to recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman, for 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Robert Mueller lays out facts from 2017 that constitute obstruction of justice, but says the president cannot be indicted. Only Congress can apply the law to those facts. Many of us have been talking about impeachment since those facts emerged in 2017. Of course, today we focus on more recent crimes. So why did we talk of impeachment back when a Republican-led
Terry.
Congress
Much
would not
appreciated.
act? Why do we impeach today when a Republican-led Senate is unlikely to
tweet this out.
act? First, because it is our constitutional duty, no matter what the political consequences. Second, because it is the most effective tool to chasten and restrain a president who is not naturally feel constrained by the rule of law. I would note that the president's attempt to extort Ukraine was secretive and furtive, far different from his modus operandi of brazen threats that we saw in 2017.
Is my sweater too
We can
distracting?
only imagine what high crimes and misdemeanors this president would have boldly committed had no one been talking about impeachment then, had he felt immune from impeachment. Today we will demonstrate that the president is not above the law.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It would have been nice if they'd actually thought those crimes were bad enough to put in the articles. They didn't. I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Ratcliffe.
Gentleman's recognized for 3 minutes.
Madam
got
Speaker,
a
do you
point
know
there.
who doesn't think the Democrats
Could
have
be a lot more
presented
articles
enough
of impeachment.
testimony or evidence to impeach President Trump today? It's the Democrats. Sure, here in the House, Democrats running this inquiry have declared they've done everything needed. They have all the testimony and evidence necessary to impeach right now. But right now, down the hall, Democrats in the Senate are saying the exact opposite. They're complaining. They need more evidence and more testimony because Senate Democrats know that House Democrats have built them a house of cards impeachment. An impeachment built by the same Democrats who told America, trust us, President Trump committed
Sounds epic-
treason.
epic music
He's
says,
a Russian
"Watching this
agent,
really makes me not
and
like
we've got
democracy."
evidence, which of course proved to be totally false and to quote
Thank you,
the
Comrade
favorite
Questions.
catchphrase of
Thank
one
you,
member of
Bizzle.
this House, they got caught. Along the way, those same Democrats said, trust us. The
How much
FISA
should I
law and
interfere
court
here
weren't
with
abused
speaking?
by the Obama administration using Democratic opposition
'Cause
research
a lot of this is
dossier
gonna be
against the Trump
regurgitating the same
campaign
talking points
and
over
President
and over
Trump.
again.
Again, totally false, and again, they got caught. And when Democrats started this latest impeachment inquiry, they said, trust us. We have not yet spoken to the whistleblower. Again,
Yeah, as
totally
you just said,
false,
Jennifer.
and
Exactly.
they got caught. Sadly, my Democratic colleagues have placed their own credibility in the hands of members of this body that have no credibility left, members that nobody trusts because they keep getting caught betraying America. But unless a bolt of courage and integrity strikes that side of the room in the next hour, history will reflect that Donald Trump is the third president to be impeached. History may also shortly reflect that he'll be the first president to be reelected after being wrongfully impeached. And if that happens, Democrats won't be able to hide behind a pretend veneer of caring about the Constitution.
I'm gonna fast
History
forward to
will
the
record
election.
the Democrats' legacy as a betrayal
There's gonna be
of
a
the
lot-
Constitution.
people don't-
because the
a lot of people
founders
don't get
meant
it.
for impeachment.
There's going to be a lot of people
used
coming out to vote against
for
Trump.
actions so extraordinary, so rare that it's happened 3 times in 2.5 centuries. It wasn't meant for congratulatory phone
Trump
calls
voters
where
come
there's
out
no
regardless.
crime alleged, where there's no victim, and where the Democrats themselves couldn't even decide what to accuse the president of doing wrong before ending up with this embarrassment of a grab bag of abuse of power article. An obstruction of Congress to even
Victoria Thomas
allege
says
it
drink every
is an
time they
admission
mention
of
Jesus or religion.
constitutional illiteracy. The founders had a term for what the Democrats call obstruction of Congress. The founders called it the separation of powers. And the funny thing about obstruction, every time Democrats get caught trying to frame this president for some crime he didn't commit, they follow up by accusing him of obstructing their efforts to frame him for the things he never did in the first place. The founders warned and feared today might come when impeachment was used politically by the party that had the most votes. Today, Democrats are the founders' worst nightmare come true. I think most Americans are probably wishing they could impeach the Democrats. To them, I say, you can next November. I yield back.
Gentleman
luck with
from
that one.
California.
Madam Speaker, I think when the history of this time is written, it will record that when my colleagues found that they lacked the courage to stand up to this unethical president, they consoled themselves by attacking those who did. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Takano, for a unanimous consent request.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my remarks supporting the impeachment of President Donald Trump.
That objection is so ordered.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent for the gentlelady from
IR
New York,
Nerdy Girl
Ms.
says,
Clark.
just to recap, all day
For
now
her
Democrats
request.
say we have
Gentlemen,
evidence and connected the
Madam
dots. Are you
Speaker, I
delusional?
ask unanimous
Republican
consent
response
to enter
is
into
he
the
didn't do
record
it.
My remarks supporting my vote
Yeah,
for the
that's kind of how it's
impeachment
been going.
of Donald J. Trump.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I recognize the gentlelady from California, Ms. Napolitano, for unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I
Napolitano.
ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my remarks supporting the articles of impeachment against Donald Trump.
Without objection, so ordered.
Madam Speaker, the gentlelady from Ohio, Ms. Beatty, for unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my remarks supporting the impeachment of President Donald Trump.
Without objection, so ordered.
Speaker, I recognize the gentlelady from Virginia, Ms. Wexton, for a unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my remarks supporting the impeachment of President Donald Trump.
Without objection, so ordered.
Madam Speaker, I'm now proud to recognize the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pasquarello, for 1 minute.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, we're here today because of the failure of so many to cast aside narrow ambition to confront the threat standing before us. Offered the chance to investigate this government together, the President and his party stonewalled and obstructed. We're here today because they choose comfort over courage and avarice over the Republic. This is the ongoing tragedy of our age, and it is ongoing. The matter is now solely in our hands and belongs to us and us alone. The buck has stopped. Many have invoked the judgment of history as an antidote to this threat. But the threat to democracy is here today, not tomorrow. We need not, we must not await the verdict of time for Donald Trump's abuse of power and obstruction. We can offer that verdict right now, and we are.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan.
Gentleman's
Thanks,
recognized
Jacob.
for 3
Jacob
minutes.
says, love your show,
Gentlemen,
David.
Madam Speaker, the
Thank you so much.
Democrats forgot two key things. Forgot about the facts and they forgot about fairness. 4 facts will never change. We have the call transcript, no quid pro quo. We have the 2 guys on the call, excuse me, who've repeatedly said there was no pressure, there was no pushing. We have the fact Ukraine didn't know aid was held up at the time of the phone call, and most importantly, Ukraine took no action, no announcement of investigation to get the aid released. But Democrats don't care. They don't care about the facts, and they sure don't care about the process. No subpoena power for Republicans, no
There was a quid
Republican
pro
witnesses.
quo, and you
During
don't
the
even need it.
depositions, Republicans were prevented
also
from
don't even
getting
need a
all their
crime.
questions answered, but Democrats got every one of their questions. The witness responded to every one of theirs, but not Republicans. The chairman wouldn't let them. And of
Can't
course, the
stand this guy.
whistleblower, the anonymous whistleblower with no firsthand knowledge, bias against the president, who worked for Joe Biden, was never compelled to testify. The guy who started it all. This is really about the president's been driving these guys crazy because he's getting things done. He's doing what he said he was going to do. He's having results. Taxes have been cut, regulations reduced, unemployment at its lowest level in 50 years, the economy growing. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh on the court, out of the Iran deal, embassy in Jerusalem, hostages home from North Korea, and a new NAFTA agreement coming tomorrow.
You can see why I don't cover
But
the
guess
GOP
what?
very often.
When you drain
It's
the
just
swamp,
all lies.
the swamp fights
Where do you
back.
start?
And they started attacking
It's just
the
all
president
misconstruing.
before
If
the
it's not a lie,
election
you're
even.
misconstruing the data,
July
misconstruing
31st,
information.
2016, they
It's
opened the
all
Russia
just
investigation. The FBI
complete
spied on
BS
4
all
American
the
citizens
time.
associated with the Trump campaign.
Like, if you don't already see it, if you don't already get it,
The FBI took the dossier to
nothing
the
to offer
FISA
you.
court, the dossier they already knew was false. They took it to the court, and they lied to the court 17 times. Guess what? 3 days ago, 3 days ago on national television, even Jim Comey had
Jacob
to
says
admit
Bernie Sanders
the
for
FBI
president. We
was
need
wrong.
it.
And yesterday,
100%.
1 day ago,
The world
the
needs
FISA
it.
court sends the FBI a letter and says, straighten up, get your act together when it comes to the FISA application process. Think about this.
Mario
about
says,
this.
David, your sweater looks
The
comfortable
attack
as hell.
started then, and they've continued
It's very
right up till
comfortable.
today. But I want you to think about something. The
might get
individual
too
who
hot in
said
here.
the FISA process was fine, the dossier was fine, the Russian investigation was fine, that same individual ran the impeachment process. That same individual's staff met with the whistleblower. That same individual is the only guy in Congress who knows who the whistleblower is for sure. And that same individual
It doesn't
released
matter
the phone records of the president's
who the
personal
whistleblower
attorney,
is.
released
There
the
are
phone
many
records of a member of
witnesses
the press,
apart from the
and
whistleblower.
released the phone
That
records
it's just
of
the
a
same
Republican
BS
member of the United States
over and over again.
Congress. This process has been unfair, it's been dangerous, and it has been harmful to our country. Democrats have never accepted the will of the American people. Nancy Pelosi made that clear 4 weeks ago when she called the President of the United States an imposter. The will of we, the
New
people.
member.
The 63 million folks
Welcome,
who voted for this guy and made him president
Shahab.
in an electoral college
Thank you
landslide.
for becoming a member.
They've never accepted that fact. We are less than 11 months away from the election.
Thank you, Eno.
Let the American people decide who should be president. Let the American people decide. I yield back.
Gentleman from
Yeah, they'll decide
California.
in 2020. He's not going to be removed.
Speaker, I'm proud to recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Schneider, for 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise to defend the Constitution and support these articles of impeachment. The President abused the power of his office by corruptly putting his own political interests ahead of our nation's security. He blocked congressionally authorized military aid to coerce Ukraine to launch a phony investigation into his political rival.
How do they sleep at night?
In the months
Andrew asks
since,
this,
he has waged
Andrew
a campaign of
Good
absolute
question.
obstruction
I don't
against
really know.
Congress's constitutional authority.
They don't have souls?
Ordering all federal officials to defy subpoenas.
I couldn't do what they
and
do.
refusing to produce even a single document. Madam Speaker, I take no joy in today's impeachment vote or that the President's actions demand this response. This is a sad moment for our nation. Only twice before has the House voted to impeach a president, and never before on accusations of compromising our nation's security.
I see melancholy.
I hope the Senate prosecution, I hope in the Senate, prosecution and defense can call and cross-examine witnesses, and the senators will hear the evidence and
Another
make their
new
decisions without prejudice.
Welcome. I'd
or
rather be at the
prejudgment.
beach. That's
this
a great
is a solemn moment, but
I
our
would
system
too.
of checks and balances was designed for times like these, and I have faith that our Constitution will guide us on the path ahead. I yield back.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Like, I would like to jump in
Madam
and,
Speaker, I yield
and
3
show
minutes
things
to
that are
the
more
gentleman from
interesting, but at the same
California,
time, I know people are here to
Gentleman's
watch this.
recognized for
Thank you,
3
gentlemen.
minutes.
Madam Speaker, as the Democrats now admit, their attempt to remove the president began on Trump's inauguration day, when the Democrats' semi-official mouthpiece, the Washington Post, declared the campaign to impeach President Trump has begun. For years, the Democrats tried to expel the president with the preposterous accusation that he was a Russian agent. As detailed
I'll
by
answer this
IG
super chat in a
Horowitz,
second. I just want to hear.
dishonest intelligence officials
hear Nunez here.
used fake allegations spread by the Democrats to gain approval of a spying operation against the Trump campaign. As they falsely accused the Trump campaign of colluding with Russians, the Democrats themselves colluded with Russians to manufacture these allegations in the infamous Steele dossier. They even tried to get nude pictures of Trump from Russian pranksters. With the Russian collusion hoax, the Democrats had everything going for them. Federal investigations run by Trump haters, an endless supply of media cheerleaders.
That's what would have got Trump
and a
impeached if they
galaxy
got
of
nude pictures
left-wing
of him.
interest groups amplifying their ridiculous message. And yet, even with all those weapons at their
There's
disposal,
no rationale
the Russia
behind this
conspiracy
line of
theory
argument.
collapsed. So they quickly concocted Plan B. The Ukraine hoax was based on a supposed whistleblower who colluded beforehand with the Democrats. The Democrats then prevented Congress from interviewing the whistleblower while conducting bizarre, secret depositions and selectively leaking testimony to discredited media hacks. The Democrats showcased the most useful witnesses in public hearings that somehow reduced support for impeachment. It's not easy to make a coup attempt
Once
boring,
he's done talking,
the Democrats
I'll
found a
respond
way.
to some of these things.
As it turns out, the American people don't think a routine phone call with a foreign leader is a good basis for ousting a U.S. president. The Democrats also put forth ever-changing accusations against the president, including campaign finance violations, quid pro quos, election interference, bribery, extortion. Eventually, they ended up with the ridiculous charges we consider today: abuse of power, an utterly meaningless term, and obstruction of Congress. One Democrat has pronounced the president guilty
I can't.
simply because he won't cooperate with their plan.
Let me
to
respond.
railroad him.
Devin Nunez is absurd. Okay, J-Mac, $20. Thank you so much, J-Mac. Says, I feel as though Trump should be impeached over the emoluments with the Saudis funding his hotels.
Their impeachment efps,
I agree with that. I agree with you there. Aiding the genocide in Yemen and him vetoing Bernie's resolution to end the aid. P.S. Leave your girlfriend and get with me, Daddy.
The Democrats need a long period of
That's too
rehabilitation.
funny. Thank you, J-Mac.
They must learn how to do something productive for the American people.
New member, Comrade Questions.
Instead of ripping
Thank
the
you.
country apart.
New member, Terry. Thank
And
you,
their
Terry
lust
Munden.
for power.
Thank you so much.
For that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman
You done
yields
now?
back.
Oh,
Gentleman
thank
from
God.
California.
Madam Speaker, I thank the gentleman for his remarks, and it's now my pleasure to recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Chairman Neal, for 3 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is deeply unfortunate that we have to undertake this impeachment proceeding that unfolds this evening. But the part we play in this process is not optional. Among other things, as the Intelligence and Judiciary Committees have painstakingly
Michael
documented,
Cuomo says, I can't even
the
look at
president has
peaches
indeed
anymore.
abused his
Nunez is
authority,
giving his cow
and he has
material for the
indeed
Twitter
obstructed
account.
justice. He threatened to withhold congressionally appropriated U.S. taxpayer dollars
Patrick
from
DeHoyo
an ally under
says,
attack
is
from
corporate money
Russia
in
unless they
politics a
agreed
problem
to
in Canada as
interfere
well? If
in
so,
our
to what
election
degree
on
compared to
his
the U.S.?
behalf.
Not
He has
really.
expressed no remorse, and he
We
continues
have
to maintain that his
much
behavior
stricter
was,
campaign finance
quote,
laws here.
perfect.
It's not.
While simultaneously
There's still like
obstructing
elite
legitimate
influence,
congressional
absolutely,
oversight
100%,
and
but it's not
subpoenas
like
and blocking members of his
you're not having
administration
corporations buy
from
elections.
providing
So it's
truthful
not quite the same.
testimony to investigators. His actions are so far beyond the pale that they have left us with no remaining recourse except impeachment, and so we shall impeach. Because as drastic and as unwelcome as this step is, our country faces even greater long-term risk if we fail to respond. We cannot excuse a president who feels entitled to disregard or break the law with impunity. We are a nation built upon the rule of law, not the law of rulers. The framers gave us their best effort in 1787.
I'm only reading this because
and indeed
laugh.
it was an extraordinary
Byron Baldwin says,
The
David, I'm
Constitution
serious.
they
You are
set down
hot. Have you
wasn't
considered
perfect,
becoming a
but
fitness
it
model?
founded a republic that has endured and
Do you?
thrived
I wear
with
clothes
exceptional
on, stream,
stability.
on my streams.
As the late
in my
Senator
videos.
Moynihan pointed out,
I would not be a good
countries in the
fitness
world,
model. I would
both
need
existed
to
in
maybe spend
1800
at
and
least
have
a
never
few
had their
months really
governments
working out pretty
changed by
hard.
violence since then. The United States and Britain.
Maybe like
Only 8 governments have
6
existed
years
since
ago,
1914
when
and
I
have
was
not
somewhat in
had their
shape, I
form
could
of
have tried
government
that.
changed
But,
by
no. But
force
thank you
since
for the
then.
compliment.
The United States, the United Kingdom,
I do find
Australia,
it funny.
Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, Sweden, and Switzerland. The innovative system of checks and balances that they constructed with the separation of powers brought about
Zachary,
successfully
thanks for
negotiated
becoming a member.
a generation of challenges.
I also got
that we
Patron,
have
by the way,
sustained.
or I should say Patreon.
In the very first week that the framers began crafting
That's
this
another
blueprint
option.
for America's freedom
Wanna
and
be a
stability,
Patreon
and negotiations indeed
I'm never
immediately
gonna get
started
that straight.
on impeachment. No government in the world at that time exposed the head of government to impeachment, but America was to be different. In the view of the framers, impeachment is in no way a constitutional crisis. It is a process that the framers wisely judged that we would sometimes need. This evening is one of those rare moments. Madison worried that one day the country would elect a president who, quote, might pervert his administration to a scheme of peculation or oppression. He might betray his trust to foreign powers, end of quote. George Mason asked the delegates, quote, shall we see any man to be above justice? And above all, shall that man be above it? Then who can commit the most
Nick
extensive
says, David, I aspire to have a
injustice?
beard as on fleek
End of
as you.
quote.
as you.
Of course
LOL.
not, because having just thrown off one king, they would never consent to anoint another one. America firmly rejected
just
the
wake up?
notion
No,
of
I have a
divine
cold, though.
right. Speaker Rayburn summed it up, but I have
Let me
30
explain
extra
why
seconds,
I sound the way I
Mr.
do.
30 extra seconds.
Without objection.
Thank the gentleman.
Gentleman's recognized.
Article 1 of the Constitution prescribes Congress as the first branch of government. And just as importantly, let me quote Speaker Rayburn, who was asked, how many presidents did you serve under? And Speaker Rayburn answered, none. I served with 7 presidents of the United States. Impeachment is reserved for moments of grave danger when the constitutional order becomes dangerously out of balance, moments like this one.
Some of these I'm
And
not
that's
reading
why I
out
will vote
loud, just so you
to
know.
impeach.
But I am reading a lot of the chat.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield a minute 45 to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Ferguson. Minute
Gentleman's
45 seconds.
recognized for 1 minute, 45 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, here we are on the verge of doing exactly what America doesn't want us to do and what they feared that you would do.
All right,
In
let's watch this.
2016, I, along with 63 million American voters,
This guy looks like he's really into
representing
it.
304 electoral college votes, went to the polls and we raised our collective political middle finger to D.C. and voted for Donald Trump.
And
Folks
then he
like
gave
my
us
father
Goldman
who watched
Sachs
this
in his
place
administration.
destroy his profession of community banking.
Drain in the swamp for more
My friends
swamp.
and family in the textile industry that saw their way of life destroyed following NAFTA. Americans in rural areas whose
Yeah, he's so
opportunity in
anti-NAFTA
life
that
and
he's
vivid
writing a new
voice have
version
been
of
drowned
NAFTA.
out by the screams of socialist Democrats. Our friends and neighbors living in poverty and crime, broken down, project-based public housing, who for generations have been told by this place, this is the best that we think that you can do. Here's your check. God bless you. Now move along. Those voters. And now you want to remove
What?
our voice
from office. Well, our voice will be heard, and I
The voice of
stand
the billionaire?
here determined to make sure that it will be, because we will fight back against this corrupt and unfair impeachment process. How dare you, the liberal elites, the condescending bureaucrats, and every other kind of swamp critter in this godforsaken place tell the American public who the president should be. That's the job of the American voter.
And
not
they
yours.
voted for Hillary Clinton
This
by 3
whole
million
flipping
votes.
goat
Oh, I
rodeo
forgot that
is
part.
a sham and a shame, and it will not be forgotten. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Mr.
Gentleman
Speaker,
from
I'm full of
California.
shit.
Madam Speaker, I'm proud to
He can go
recognize
to
the
hell.
gentlewoman from
I was gonna
Washington,
say F
the
him
gentleman from
with the
Washington,
full
Mr.
word,
Heck,
but
for 2 minutes.
Gentleman's
keep it
recognized for
PG a
2
little bit
minutes.
here.
Madam Speaker, this week Americans are busy finishing up their Christmas shopping, mostly for their children, or if they're lucky enough to have them, their grandchildren. And high school and college students are taking final exams and sweating out the results.
What am I doing?
And that
I
got
don't-
me
I
to
don't have
thinking
college or
about those
kids.
who follow and what our
forgot me.
obligation is to them. And that got me thinking about those who came before and how they might have seen their obligation
I don't feel
to us.
represented here.
People like my grandfather, whom our family believes literally was born on the boat on the way over here from Germany, or my father, who fought in World War II against the very people that his grandfather had left.
New member. What's up,
We're
Arjun?
all here today,
Thanks for
all
joining.
of us, because someone before us sacrificed so that they could journey here and build a new life in this unique land. And we are here today because those immigrants and their children were dedicated not just to the land of America, but to the idea, freedom and opportunity secured by self-government, choosing our own leaders in free and fair elections, and the rule of law under the Constitution.
Gentleman's time's expired.
Yes, Corey, I'm trying to have fun.
Madam Speaker, happy to yield another 30 seconds to the gentleman from Washington.
Gentleman's recognized.
Though there are moments like this where I'm
This
just like,
idea of America is in
I
peril,
agree with you, but
brought about so
be
by
less
this
boring,
president
please.
who sought to cheat in an election. A president who puts himself above the law and attacks the bedrock constitutional precept of checks and balances. Yeah, the question is, can America survive this behavior? What idea will we hand down to those who follow us? And finally, what is our
Dan P says
obligation
$5
to those
for the
who would
warm
follow?
sweater fund. Thanks, Dan.
It is simply this: to do our duty, to defend the Constitution and the values underpinning it by voting yes
I am pretty
on the
cozy right
articles
now,
of
I gotta say.
impeachment. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman
This man
from
seems
Georgia.
nice, but I'm sure
I reserve, Madam Chair.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from California.
he's voted a bunch of terrible ways.
Madam Speaker, I'm proud to yield to the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Demings, for 2 minutes.
Gentlelady's recognized for 2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, we live in the greatest democracy in the world, and I am convinced that the overwhelming majority of Americans are good, decent people who work hard and play by the rules. But then we have people who have no respect for the law, people who have little regard for the rules, people who spend a lot of their time trying to figure out how to game the system.
Aaron Pimentel says it doesn't sound like
officers call them
it doesn't sound like some of these Southern
habitual
Republicans
offenders.
are over the Civil War.
And the
does
more
it?
they get away with, the more
you.
likely they are to engage in misconduct. Some say it takes courage to hold powerful people accountable, but I see it differently. I see it as a sense of duty, a regular part of my job as a member of Congress. However, habitual offenders usually don't sneak up on you. They usually telegraph their intentions time and time again. On July 27th of 2016 in my home state of Florida, then candidate Trump said, "Russia, if you're listening, I hope you will be able to find the 30,000 emails, thereby inviting foreign interference into U.S. elections." But then the day after the special counsel testified before Congress, the president, feeling undeterred and emboldened, said, call President Zelensky and pressured him to help him rig the elections, and chose to hold much-needed military
Like,
aid
imagine if any
over
of
our
if a
allies'
fraction of
heads
this happened
until the
with
president's
Obama.
demands were met.
Or
Now, I
Clinton,
served
for that
12
matter.
years on the hostage negotiations team,
And look, and
I know that pressure
I
and
criticize
demands come
them
in
quite
many
a bit,
forms. And
but
in
it's
this
nowhere
scheme,
near
we had both.
what Trump and
I've
the GOP
enforced
get away
the
with.
laws, and now I write the laws. But the laws mean nothing if the accused can destroy evidence, stop witnesses from testifying, and blatantly refuse to cooperate. I ask you to name somebody in your community or your family who can do
New
that.
member, I can't tell your name,
The
it just
president
looks like it
said
says
that he
I
can get
fart
away
magic.
with anything
But,
he wants to.
that might
I come
actually be what your
today
name
to
is.
tell you
But
that
thank
no, he cannot, because no one is above the law, and he shall be held accountable.
Gentleman from Georgia.
David Kranzy says Bernie just opened his Twitter DMs. Yeah, I
Thank
saw
you,
that.
Madam Speaker. At this moment, I yield for a
We'll see
unanimous
how that
consent
goes.
request. The gentleman from Arkansas.
Gentleman's
Someone's checking
recognized.
those.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to enter my remarks into the record in opposition to this sham impeachment.
Without objection, so ordered. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I yield 4 minutes to the gentlewoman from Wyoming.
Dems would have
Ms.
screwed over
Cheney.
Obama,
Gentleman is
100%.
recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you very much,
free-
Mr. Collins. And
free
Madam
is always
Speaker,
me, says that.
I rise
Yeah,
today on the floor of this
And they should. I mean,
magnificent
if
chamber,
Obama
the
did
very
anything
heart
Trump did, then they should
of our democratic
go against him.
republic. And I
for
would
it.
imagine, Madam Speaker,
Because it'd
that
be breaking
every
the-
one of us in
I
this
mean,
chamber,
apart from breaking the law, it's just-
regardless of party,
Again, you don't need to be breaking the law to be
understands,
impeached.
shares
but,
a common view
like,
that
the amount
being
of crap
citizens
Trump has gotten
of this
away
great
with.
republic is among life's most tremendous blessings. We all know that no force on earth is more powerful
is Liz
than
Cheney.
the force of freedom. It is our miraculous constitutional system, Madam Speaker, defended by our men and women in uniform, that has safeguarded that freedom for 230 years. Each one of us in this chamber bears a sacred duty, passed down to us through generations and affirmed in our oath of office,
That
to
we must
preserve
murder brown
and
people
protect our
from
Constitution.
overseas.
Madam Speaker, our nation's framers recognized that this republic is fragile and that extreme partisanship can be among the most severe threats to its survival. That is why in Federalist 65, Alexander Hamilton wrote, quote, "There will always be the greatest danger that the impeachment decision will be regulated more by the comparative strength of parties than by real demonstrations
Thank you,
of innocence or guilt."
ADS1X.
Here,
for the
Madam
super
Speaker,
chat.
our Democratic colleagues
They've added these
have
cool
been working
animations to
to
them now.
remove
I like
this
that.
president since the day he was elected, searching for an offense on which they could impeach. Failing
your
to
comments.
find one, Madam Speaker,
Thank you for your nice
they have
comments.
decided to assume
I'm
one.
not going to read them, though.
Rather than attempting to enforce their subpoenas in court, they have also decided to declare it a high crime and misdemeanor when the President of the United States asserts his constitutional privileges. The Democrats are asking members of this body to impeach, despite the fact that they have presented no direct evidence of any impeachable offense.
That's
Let me say
not
it one more
true
time,
at all.
Madam Speaker. They have presented no direct evidence of any impeachable offense.
Maybe if they say it
If
enough, they'll
anyone in
actually
this
believe
chamber
themselves.
still believes the
Unbelievable.
Democrats
Just
have proven their
constantly
case,
lying.
I would
lying,
urge those
lying.
members to ask the chairman of the Intelligence Committee,
J-Mac says,
Mr.
daughter
Schiff,
of a war criminal, say
why
what?
he failed to appear to
Exactly.
answer questions
Thanks for the
about
super
his
chat.
report. Before members vote for impeachment, they might want to know why the author of the impeachment report will not
Dimitri
defend
says
it under question.
Cheney said he might be dating
If
Liz
the
if she
House
wasn't his
impeaches
daughter.
here, Madam Speaker, it will create exactly the type of risk the framers cautioned us to avoid. It will mean that divided government can imperil a democratically elected president based
What's up, Robert
on
Penner?
unproven
Thanks for
allegations
becoming a member.
and innuendo in the absence of direct testimony. Despite all the rhetoric you've heard today, Madam
Let me hear how she
Speaker,
ends this before I say anything.
passage of these articles of impeachment may permanently damage our republic. From this day forward, a hyper-partisan
You impeached-
bare majority
not you,
can
but
cite this precedent to try to
Congress,
remove a future commander-in-chief.
by and large, impeached.
I urge my
Clinton over
colleagues on
lying about
both
a
sides
blowjob,
of
so
the
get
aisle,
fuck outta
Madam
here with your
Speaker,
bullshit.
think of our republic, think of the Constitution, think of the oath that we all swore to protect and defend that
phony.
Constitution and vote against these partisan, reckless, and dangerous articles of impeachment. I yield back.
Okay. Stranger
Gentleman from
X9 says, imagine the
California.
rage if
Madam
Bernie
Speaker, I'm
loses
proud
the
to recognize the
nominee
gentleman
to
from
Biden.
Michigan, Mr. Levin, for 1 minute.
And then Trump beats
Gentleman's
Biden because the
recognized for
left
1
is so
minute.
sick of corporate lapdogs. R.I.P. America. Yeah, I'm afraid of that. That's why you got to get involved now.
Madam Speaker,
Not just you, your friends,
today
family.
we
Get people involved.
proclaim
Make sure they go out in the primaries
that
and vote
no
or caucus.
person is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
I think I missed one.
Donald J. Trump
Koru says my
abused the
champagne is
power
on
of his
ice,
office
and I'm wearing my official
and
yellow
violated
impeachment
his oath of
whistleblower
office
whistle.
by extorting a new and
That's great.
inexperienced president of a
Karen
vulnerable
Sita says,
foreign
grab a coffee,
ally
David. I'm falling
to dig
asleep.
up dirt on Mr. Trump's domestic
nah.
political
Nah. I mean, this is going to be boring. I'm sorry.
He
I'm
then
going to try to be as
obstructed the
entertaining as
Congress,
possible, but
this equal
I only got
branch
so
of
much
our
content here to
government,
work with.
from undertaking our duty.
Vash Rain says, when do
Outlined in the
the
Constitution itself
American people
to
get
investigate
to throw these
and
liars into
check
jail?
these
The
violations.
majority are criminals and destroy good people's lives.
Today, we do nothing more
Yeah,
and
unfortunately,
nothing
I don't know
less
if that's ever really
than
going to be
fulfill our duty to our country
really going to happen, I should say.
and to our Constitution. Mr. Trump has allowed foreign powers to interfere in our domestic affairs. He has endangered our national security and our democracy itself. For those reasons, we must impeach this president.
So the votes are,
Thank you,
appear to be
Madam
coming
Speaker. I
soon,
yield back.
according
Gentleman from
to
Georgia.
the Chiron here.
Madam Speaker, at this point, I have a yield for a unanimous consent request to the gentleman from Oregon.
Gentleman's recognized.
I pose this resolution on impeachment and ask that my words be put in the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Madam Speaker, I have unanimous consent request from the gentleman from South Carolina.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, I
They may
ask,
try and drag this
oppose
out. I don't know what they're
these
gonna do.
resolutions. I ask for my comments to be admitted into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask unanimous consent for the gentleman from Mississippi.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I oppose the articles of impeachment and like my comments be entered into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from California.
Madam Speaker, reserve the balance of my time.
Who seeks recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask of the gentleman, is he ready to close?
No, we have a few more speakers.
Then I reserve.
Madam Speaker, I recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Espiat, for 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Sounds like we're nearing the end.
Madam Speaker, if you live in Lenox Avenue in the village of Harlem in my district, you are not above the law. If you live on Webster Avenue in the Bronx part of my district, you are not above the law. If you live in Washington Heights, the immigrant neighborhood in my district, you are not above the law. So I submit to you that if you live on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, you are not above the law, and you will be held accountable. President Donald Trump asked Ukrainian president to do us a favor and look into the Biden. That's abuse of power. President Trump used the official White House meeting to extort a Ukrainian president. That's abuse of power. President Trump ordered White House staff to withhold $400 million in aid to the Ukraine. That's abuse of power. President Trump and his staff defied multiple subpoenas from Congress. That's obstruction of Congress. He blocked witnesses from testifying before
Trey
this
Love
body.
says, do you think this impeachment was a misstep? I feel like this whole process will only galvanize the Republican base after it fails in the Senate.
No one is above the law.
Look back in the
I
history,
cast my
or
vote
look
for
back
this
in just recent history.
impeachment.
Republicans come out and vote
Articles of
anyways.
impeachment, and I ask my
They're going to come
colleagues
out
to do the same.
and vote for Trump regardless.
Madam Speaker, I
So
yield for unanimous
this is
consent
not
request
going to
from
help
from
Trump. It's
Virginia.
going to only empower, or it's going to help Democrats. There's a lot of people that are not all that into politics, but they hate Donald Trump. There's a lot of those people. They will come out and vote against
articles
Trump
of impeachment
when
on the basis that they do not measure
impeachment
Article
doesn't go
2,
through.
Section 4.
I reserve.
So I think it's not going to hurt.
Madam Speaker, I'm proud to recognize the gentlelady from California, Ms. Brownlee, for 1 minute.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, as the chair of the Women's Veterans Task Force, I see every single day the immense sacrifice our women veterans and all of our nation's veterans have made in service to our country, in service to our Commander-in-Chief, our Constitution,
Like, yeah, they
to
could have
protect
obviously
our
done a lot more.
democracy, and for
They
every
could have
single man, woman,
presented many
and
more articles of
child
impeachment
in
just
our
based
country.
on everything Trump has done.
When the President of the
Financial
United
crimes,
States
hush money
used
payments,
$400 million
emoluments clause,
meant to
11
protect our national security
cases of obstruction
in
of
order
justice in the
to
Mueller
cheat
report.
in our
They could have brought it all
elections,
out, and they
he
could have really
not
dragged
only
this out.
abused his power,
and I'd be okay with
he
that.
turned his back
But
on the sacrifices
that doesn't mean
of
what
our
they're doing
veterans
here isn't
and their families
impeachable.
have
Like,
made
what
for
he did
all that
with the
we
call to Ukraine
hold
is
so
definitely impeachable.
dear. That abuse
It's
of
just more
power
narrow than I would
is
have liked.
reprehensible,
But
and it is exactly what
that said, I still
impeachment
support
was designed
impeachment.
to prevent. We have a solemn duty to protect our Constitution, to protect our democracy, and to honor all those who have laid their lives on the line for these
Christian,
United
settle down.
States
I'm seeing your
of
post.
America.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Thank you for calling me Snack Daddy
Gentleman
Dolt. That
from
is very
Georgia.
kind of you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this
You
time,
don't
I
have to
yield
really go
for a
all out
unanimous consent request to the gentlelady from Indiana.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my opposition to these articles of impeachment.
Without objection.
Robert, people thought so.
Gentleman from
Robert
California.
Colorado says, David, I think you're wrong. People are not going to come out
Speaker, I'm
and
proud to
vote if
recognize
it's
the
just
gentlewoman
against
from
Trump.
California,
If that
Ms.
was the
Davis,
case,
for
we
30
would
seconds.
have
Gentleman is
record turnout in
recognized.
16. No, because they didn't think Trump had a chance. The media kept telling
Madam
people, "Oh,
Speaker,
Trump has no chance.
Madam
Hillary
Speaker,
Clinton,
make
99%
no
she's going to win."
mistake.
A lot of
We
people stayed
are
home
not
because they didn't care for
impeaching
Hillary.
this
But now they're
president.
actually going to come out because he's the freaking
He
president,
is
and they're going to vote
impeaching
against him.
himself.
Those people 100% exist. A lot of those
If you
people
were the
exist.
president
That said, you still, I
and
think you
you
still need like a
obstruct
Bernie Sanders
justice,
candidate to excite other people
try
out to
to
vote, like young
bribe
people,
a foreign
independents,
leader,
a lot of
and
other non-voters that don't care about
national
any of this.
security.
So
You're going
you
to
still
get
need like
impeached.
an exciting candidate like Bernie Sanders.
End of
But with that
story.
said, Trump, as you saw in 2018,
Video's
a
back.
lot more Democratic voters came out. And by the way, there was record turnout for both
Gentleman
parties.
from Georgia.
And when that happens, Democrats largely still win
Thank you, Madam
because
Speaker.
there are
At this
more
time, I recognize the
Democratic
gentleman
leaders
from
in the
North
country,
Carolina
more
for
Democratic
unanimous consent
non-voters in the
request.
country
Gentleman's recognized.
than there are
Madam
Republicans.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my opposition to these articles.
You just have to engage those people
Without objection.
on more issues. But there's a lot of
Gentleman from
people
California.
that don't want this idiot as their president, and I don't blame them.
Madam Speaker, I'm proud to recognize the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Holland, for 1 minute.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I stand before you as a representative of New Mexico, a place where we believe in dignity and respect for all. In Congress, I've been fighting for them. We've been working to make health care more affordable, education accessible, and move our
think we're in the
country
final stretch here.
forward for the people. But today, this president has forced us into a serious debate. We're talking about a president who used the power of the presidency for his own political gain, risking our national security and putting the integrity of the next election at risk. It's a sad day when a president shows complete disrespect for Congress as a co-equal branch of government and for the American people who elected us. We collected the evidence and the facts are indisputable. We all took an oath to protect and defend our Constitution. We have the solemn responsibility to hold this president accountable because it's our job. I urge my colleagues to live up to our responsibility and show our fellow Americans that no one, not even the president, is above the law, and I yield.
I'm drinking
Gentleman is
Heineken.
back. Gentleman from Georgia.
Jonah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this moment, I yield to the gentleman from Oklahoma for a unanimous consent request.
Gentleman's recognized.
Corus says, check
Ask
out the
unanimous
impeachment
consent to
protest.
enter
People
into
are
the
finally
record my
standing up.
opposition to these
Yeah,
articles of impeachment.
Without objection.
And I reserve.
there's a lot of people all around the country.
Gentleman from California.
Madam Speaker, I recognize
What city was
the
this? I was
gentlelady
seeing
from
a
North
huge
Carolina,
crowd.
Ms. Adams, for a unanimous consent
I forget where it
request.
was now.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my statement in support of the articles of impeachment against President Donald J. Trump.
Without objection, so ordered.
I reserve the balance of our time.
Gentleman reserves.
Thank you, Madam
Gentleman
Speaker.
from
At this
Georgia.
time, I give
Pro-impeachment protests span the country.
5
for
minutes to the gentleman
There's a lot of this
from
going on.
Louisiana, the minority whip, Mr. Scalise.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Impeaching a president of the United States. This isn't about some solemn duty tonight. Let's talk about what this is really about. This has been about a political vendetta. A political vendetta that didn't just start with the Zelensky call. It
This
started
guy was proof he
long
could still
before
get
that.
shot and still be
Just listen to some of the
pro-NRA.
quotes from Democrats in this chamber. Speaker Pelosi, quote, "It's been going on for 22 months, 2.5 years actually. We cannot accept a second term for Donald Trump. What's more serious is that he can't win. This isn't about some crime that was committed. It's about fear that he might win re-election. That's not why you impeach a president." Al Green, quote, "I'm concerned that if we don't impeach this president, he will get reelected." The list goes on, Madam Speaker. In fact, there's some quotes that I can't even read on this House floor that some of our colleagues made.
Y'all getting crazy.
And keep in mind, more than 100 Democrats on this House floor voted to impeach this president before the Zelensky phone call. Just look at some of these articles of impeachment that they voted
Mitch
for.
McConnell,
2 years ago,
after
58
Obama was
Democrats
elected,
voted to impeach the
like,
president
are you?
over comments he made about NFL players kneeling for the Pledge of Allegiance. Impeaching the president, over 50 Democrats voted to impeach him for that.
Is that
Just
in
this
front of you
summer,
right now?
Over 90
Moron.
Democrats voted to impeach the president for comments he made about the squad.
Is
So he
that in
makes
front of you right
comments
now?
About some other
Moron.
members of Congress who make a lot of comments
We can
about
go all
him,
night.
and 95 members vote to impeach the president of the United States. This is a political vendetta. It has nothing to do with the crime
Impeachment
committed.
is a political
There was
process.
No crime.
That is how
and why don't we
impeachment
listen
works.
to some of the witnesses?
Welcome
Obviously,
to Congress.
we weren't able to call all the witnesses we wanted, but there were witnesses. In fact, Gordon Sondland, U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, he's mentioned over 600 times in the Schiff report. He was their star witness. And what did he say when asked? Quote, "Did President Trump ever tell you personally about any preconditions for anything?" His answer, no. Any preconditions for the aid to be released? No. Any preconditions for a White House meeting? Under oath he testified, no. Abuse of power. Let's talk about that article of impeachment, Madam Speaker. George Washington law professor Turley, who admitted under oath that he voted against Donald Trump, spoke to this claim of abuse of power. In fact, he said, quote, "If you make
Don
high
P says,
crime and
check out
misdemeanor
the
out
great
of
article
going
on
to the
Bernie from
courts,
BuzzFeed titled "You Don't Know
it
Bernie
is
Sanders." I
an
did.
abuse of
In fact, I
power.
shared that
It's
on my
your abuse of power.
on the Facebook
you
page
are
for
doing
the Rational
precisely what you are
It's a great,
criticizing the
great piece.
president of doing. Abuse of power. There's a House rule, Madam Speaker, that requires, not allows, but requires that the minority get a day of hearing, which we asked for multiple times.
Jesus
They
Christ.
broke this rule. They didn't allow us to have a
Oh
minority
wow! Look
day
at
of
this
hearing. They didn't
ripping
want to
paper.
hear
That means
the
he's really
facts
angry.
about
That
this
means
case
it's
'cause
a
it was
really
never
bad thing that
about
this
the
is
facts,
happening.
because
Really
there was
bad.
no crime.
Because
It
he ripped
is
the paper.
about a personal
He's serious.
political
What a
vendetta.
serious guy
Now
this
let's
is.
talk about obstruction of
Siri,
Congress.
just listen to
As they make up these terms to impeach a president because they didn't find a crime and they were looking. It's been an impeachment in search of a crime.
There is many
But they talk
crimes,
about
and you also
obstruction of
don't need a crime
Congress.
for
It's saying
impeachment,
the
but
president
keep
defied subpoenas.
spreading your BS.
Subpoena after subpoena. Let's go through the departments. The Department of State they subpoenaed. Do you know that literally just 4 days after the subpoena, the Secretary of State himself responded to your subpoena? The Department of Defense, a week later, responded to the subpoena. The Department of Energy responded to the subpoena. We can go on and on with all of these agencies. That's an abuse of power. That's an obstruction of Congress, responding to your subpoena. That's what they did. They responded. You might not have liked the answer, but that's not the way this works. You don't
That's
impeach a
not-
president because you don't like his
This
foreign
is why I
policy,
can't-
as so many of those foreign
This is why
policy
I can't talk
experts
about these
came and testified. But this isn't just about Donald Trump.
It's just lies
They don't
upon
just hate
lies.
Donald Trump, Madam Speaker. They hate the 63 million Americans who voted for this president. The forgotten men and
What else
women
is
of this
happening here in
country
history?
who had been left behind, Madam Speaker.
How are you in the chat, dude?
House will be in order. Gentlemen may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's those forgotten men and women of this country that Washington had left behind. And what's this president doing for them? He's delivering for them. 600 jobs in Pennsylvania, 1,000 jobs, workers in Mingo Junction, Ohio, $750 million investment for 600 new jobs across this country. Detroit News, Chrysler, 6,500 new jobs. That's what this president is doing to deliver for those men and women of this country who had been left behind. It's about time somebody stands up for him, and President Trump is. So it is a political vendetta. But if they're going to go through with this, Madam Speaker, impeachment will not just be a stain on this Democrat majority. Impeachment will be their legacy. I
Members
yield
are
back.
reminded to address their remarks to the chair.
All day, by the way, they've been told
Gentleman
to
from
address their remarks to the
California.
chair and the remarks to the chair, and they keep not doing it. They don't abide by the rules of the.
Madam Speaker, I recognize Ms. Custer from New Hampshire for unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I request the unanimous consent for enter in my statement into the record regarding the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge in favor of articles of impeachment. Thank you.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, it is now my pleasure to recognize the gentleman from Maryland, the Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, Mr. Hoyer, for 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized.
I don't really care too much for Steny Hoyer. How much longer is this going? Let's get to the friggin' vote.
My colleagues,
The gentleman will suspend. The House will come to order. Gentleman's
Isn't Trump doing a
recognized.
rally or something right now?
Madam
to distract
Speaker,
from this?
I have had the honor of serving in this House.
It's such a witch hunt that he
for
doesn't want you to
over
watch it.
38 years. I've served during 6 presidencies. I've been here through moments of tremendous progress and terrible tragedy. I've seen periods of rank partisanship and patriotic bipartisanship. I've seen our two-party system work, and I've seen it break down. Never, in all my years of serving in this great institution that I love, and the people of my district, did I ever expect to encounter such an obvious wrongdoing by a President of the United States.
Oh my God, he's slow. Okay. Trey Love says, who do
Nor
you
did
think
I
is the best
expect to
president
witness
/ vice president combo
such a
to defeat Trump in
craven
2020? His recent
rationalization
polling has really terrified me.
presidential
To my blue brethren, please
which have
don't
put
tear
our national security
our party
at
apart
risk,
based off small differences. Vote blue.
undermine the integrity of our elections, and
the
defy
combo, I don't know.
the constitutional
Bernie
authority
Sanders, candidate for sure.
of the Congress to conduct oversight.
I would like Nina Turner as VP.
We've heard from Republicans that
Rashida
this
Tlaib,
impeachment really has to
also
do
good
with
VP.
policy
Barbara Lee,
differences
also good
or
VP.
how we feel personally about the president,
But it's hard to really
about
know.
his temperament.
That
or that
said,
we simply dislike him.
I think as long as Bernie's at the top of the
Throughout the
ticket, I'm
Trump
not all that
presidency,
worried about who the VP
Democrats have resisted pursuing impeachment, even as we watched with dismay and disgust.
is. And thank you, by the
the
way, for your
pattern of
very generous
wrongdoing.
super chat.
That pattern included ordering federal agencies
Jesus, he's
to
gonna need
lie
5 minutes for this
to
one.
the public, firing the FBI director for refusing to end investigations of his campaign, siding with Vladimir Putin against our intelligence agencies.
I don't care for that framing
Taking
because you're
funding
always going
away
to side
from
with
the
somebody
military
bad
to put
depending on
towards
positions you
an
take. Like that's a
ineffective
stupid.
border
That's not a
wall.
good argument to make.
And setting policies that have led to the separation of families and caging of children. We have to be sure deep disagreements with the policies and actions taken by this president.
The vote's supposed to happen
Been a
soon.
lot of talk about the
It's
63
supposed to happen
million
around 7
people
p.m.
who voted for
So
Mr. Trump.
should be soon.
Little talk about the 65 million people who voted for Hillary Clinton. The policy difference or those votes,
Thank you, are the
this
best.
president
Are the
was
best.
elected legitimately.
For your super chat.
The House will stay in order. The gentleman deserves to be heard. Gentleman's recognized.
Talk, dude.
because we have an electoral college.
Holy frig. What is going on here?
But none of these are reasons to pursue what Chairman Schiff has called a wrenching process for the nation. In fact, Democrats rejected that process emphatically in
Michaela Wiltz
three
is challenging him? Is that who it
specific
is?
votes. In December of 2017, Democrats overwhelmingly voted against pursuing articles of impeachment, including the Speaker and myself.
Oh, yeah, Michaela Wiltz.
We did so again in 2018 with over 60%
That's who you
of
want
the
to support.
Democrats rejecting
Michaela's
pursuing
challenging
articles
Steny
of
Hoyer.
impeachment. And again, just months ago, in July of 2019, 60% of the Democrats said no to pursuing articles of impeachment. Just days before the infamous July 25th telephone call. We did the same with 60% of Democrats voting not to proceed. Credible witnesses, many of whom were appointed to office by President Trump, have corroborated the details and timeline of his abuse of presidential power, which forms the basis.
Yeah, I haven't seen
of the
AOC
first
talk yet. I'm
article
not sure if
of
she's going to be
impeachment in this resolution.
I don't. Maybe she's gone. I haven't
Instead,
seen it.
I will not recount all of the witnesses
so
or
slow.
abuses that have occurred.
Yeah, good. Please don't.
Congratulate
don't
my
have time.
colleagues and Mr. Nadler and his committee and Mr. Schiff and his committee for setting forth a compelling case. They've been laid out fully in the articles before us and by colleagues in their remarks.
You know, if I spoke this slow,
What
maybe
I
I
will
wouldn't have
do
issues stuttering.
Is remind Americans that the House
Imagine all my
provided
videos I
President
spoke
Trump
this slowly.
every opportunity to prove his innocence. But the witnesses were precluded from coming forth. The witnesses who have personal knowledge did not come, either at the President's request.
Give Rashida Tlaib 5 minutes. Give
refused
Ilhan
to
Omar
show
5
up
minutes. Give
because he thought
AOC
it was
5
a
minutes. Let this
sham,
guy
as
sit
so
the F
many
down.
of you have said. Or to the committee.
He's not convincing anybody. This is
Instead,
not.
he ignored congressional subpoenas.
This is not
for
the right person to
documents
use.
of testimony by White House officials and ordered his subordinates not to cooperate.
Tanya Frutel, #1 fan. Thank you for your
Perhaps
super
they
chat.
could have exonerated him. This itself, I suggest to you, is unprecedented. When President Nixon and Clinton were
Hoyer
asked to hand
Soros.
over documents and allow officials
Anil
to
Ahmed
testify,
says that.
ultimately both complied because it is the law. Such actions of the President can be taken as further evidence of his obstruction.
Trey Love says
and
this
abuse
is
of
agony.
power. It is in and of itself.
If I put him on 1.25, it's just going to.
The
It's not going to
subject
speed
of the
it.
second
Speed live
of
live video up. It's just going to slow down what's happening. Or I should say, it's going to delay
These two articles
live video.
for
I
us
don't wanna do
concern two very profound constitutional issues about the abuse of power in our republic.
Oh my goodness.
First, whether it is acceptable for the President of the United States, any president, to solicit foreign interference in our elections. There is a difference as to whether he's done that, and the place to try that.
Landis Haven says,
in the
Dave, if you
United
wear
States
this
Senate.
sweater in every video, you'll be at
But
a
we
million
believe
followers.
strongly there is probable
Don't think
cause
that's true.
to
And you could
conclude
stutter,
that.
it wouldn't matter. LOL.
To undermine our national security, the integrity of our elections.
Yeah,
and the
put Jank up
integrity of
there.
our
Can you
democracy.
imagine Jank here? Jesus.
Secondly, whether it is
Doug Grinberg says that.
permissible for the president
Imagine
to
Jank.
obstruct Congress
Give
and act
Jank 5
as
minutes
if
talking
he
about Trump.
is above the law
It would be
and
incredible.
immune from constitutional oversight.
CNN, MSNBC couldn't
On
ignore
December
it. It would be
4th,
so
the
good.
Judiciary Committee heard the testimony of constitutional law experts who weighed in on these points. Some 1,500 historians have said the same thing. As Professor Noah Feldman said, if we cannot impeach a president who abuses his office for personal advantage, we no longer live in a democracy.
Like, nothing here he's saying is wrong. It's just the way he's presenting it.
We live
like,
in a monarchy. Or we live under a
This
dictatorship.
is not effective presentation.
The votes we are about to take concern the rule of law and our democracy itself. Let us not forget the words of John Locke, so influential to the founders of our republic. John Locke, millennia ago, said this: wherever law ends, tyranny begins. This impeachment asks whether we are still a republic of laws,
How often do you guys go live?
as our founders
Sorry, do
intended,
you
or
go
whether
live?
we will accept
Obviously, just me.
that one person can be
every
a
Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. I don't usually go live on
America,
Wednesdays, but impeachment's going on, so
we
I
have
figured I
said
should do
over and
a
over
live stream
again,
on this. But generally,
no one
Fridays, 3 p.m.
is above
Eastern
the law.
is my live stream.
but only as long as we hold every person accountable
And thank you, Eric,
for
for the super
breaking the
chat.
law.
Oh, wait, that's
Even a
somebody else.
president.
Thank you, Jacob, for the super chat.
Will that be true?
Eric says, where'd you get that
If the
sweater
House
at?
does
It's
not act,
fresh.
If we wait and delay,
My significant other
we
got it
run
for
the
me.
risk of allowing the president's misconduct.
So to be honest with you, I think
If we believe it to be so, to
I
be
think it's
repeated at the expense
Uniqlo
of the
in
integrity of
Toronto.
our elections,
It's
our
a
national
chain store,
security,
Uniqlo.
and our constitutional system of separation of powers.
So get it there.
Democrats did not choose this impeachment. We did not wish for it.
Okay.
We voted against it.
Come on.
We voted against it
Come on,
once.
please.
We voted against it twice. We voted against it 3 times as recently as July.
Okay, he's picking it up a little bit.
We did not want this.
A little bit.
However, President Trump's misconduct has forced our constitutional republic
my God.
to protect itself.
Fun fact,
These
this is
votes
from Ricky
that we are
Williams,
about to
says
take,
the Vogon
and the
characters from
process that will
Hitchhiker's Guide to
follow
the
in
Galaxy
the
were
Senate
based on Steny Hoyer.
are not
I
only
never
an
read nor
assessment of the
watched
president's commitment
Hitchhiker's
to
Guide
the
to the Galaxy.
Constitution or to
I'm
his
sorry
oath
to
of
say.
office.
But for those
It
of you that
is
understand that, I'm sure
as
that makes sense.
well a test of our own.
Bernie Ferres says, I thought he was given a minute. I thought he was too. I guess it was 5 minutes.
Damning evidence of the president's high crimes has emerged.
We must be near the end. They wouldn't be giving
Nevertheless,
Steny Hoyer
Republican
friggin'
members of
3
this
hours to
House
speak
and
here.
of the Senate have continued to defend a president
I don't know why
whose
AOC hasn't
actions
spoken.
seem to many of us to be indefensible. All of us feel a sense of loyalty to party. It's what makes our two-party system function. Is what helps hold presidents and majorities accountable.
Gabe Harris says, people keep saying, okay,
Party
boomer.
loyalty
Hoyer isn't a boomer. He's too old.
must have its limits.
Yeah,
and as evidence
you're,
of the
you're
president's
right there.
impeachable offenses have mounted daily as the witnesses testify.
Andrew Foster
it has
says, Dem
become
debate is back on. A
increasingly
labor
clear
agreement was made.
that the
I
limits
saw
of
that.
partisanship
That's
have
tomorrow.
been reached and passed.
I might live stream
now
that on
Democrats and
Twitch.
Republicans together
Possibly. I can't live stream
face
debates
a
on,
test
YouTube.
for
They
our
get too weird
constituents,
about it. But
our countrymen,
in case
and our
actually,
creator.
the Twitch link's below the video in the description box.
The New York Times
I'll
on
type it up in the
October
chat as well.
18th summarized the question now posed to House
If
and
you
Senate,
follow me on there, you'll be notified
Republicans and Democrats.
when I go live on.
Compromise by compromise, Donald Trump has hammered away
So I
at what
may possibly cover the debate on
Republicans
there.
once saw
But
as
maybe not.
foundational virtues: decency, honesty, responsibility, and yes, even civility. Going on to say, will they commit themselves and their party wholly to Mr. Trump embracing even his most anti-democratic actions? Or will they take the first step towards separating themselves from him and restoring confidence?
Trey Love says, is
the
this
rule
what
of law?
ASMR is? Because I'm feeling
Madam
sleepy.
Speaker,
Is he done?
we have seen Republican courage throughout our history, from the Civil War to the Cold War.
What can I show you while this guy's still talking?
In 1950, Margaret Chase Smith, the senator
now it's
from
going
Maine,
down
a
the
Republican,
years.
spoke bravely against the cancer of McCarthyism in her party,
Let's
leading 6 of her Republican colleagues in a
let me just put on stream
declaration
what Trump's been
of
tweeting.
conscience against their
Since
own
he's been
leadership.
going crazy.
We are Republicans, they declared, but we are Americans first. In 1974, one congressman took the brave and principled step of becoming the first Republican on the
atrocious
Judiciary
lies
Committee
by the radical
to
left.
support
Do
impeaching
nothing,
President
Democrats.
Nixon. He
An
said to his
assault on
colleagues
America.
and to the country,
And an
and I
assault on
quote,
the Republican Party.
"It isn't easy
Funny.
for me to align myself against the president, to whom I gave my enthusiastic support.
He still doesn't
on
know how
whose
to
side
thread
I've
tweets.
stood in many
Look
legislative
at this.
battles, whose accomplishments in
dipshit.
foreign and domestic affairs I've consistently applauded. But it is impossible," he went on to say,
Okay, that's
"for
enough
me to
now.
condone or ignore the long train of abuses to which he has subjected the presidency and the people of this country. The Constitution and my own oath of office," he said, "demand that I bear true faith and allegiance to the principles of law and justice upon which this nation was founded."
Okay, Stenny. Okay.
He concluded, "and I cannot,
Okay, Stenny.
in good conscience, turn away from the evidence of evil that is to me so clear and compelling." My colleagues, that congressman's name
Support
was
Kayla
Larry
Wilkes over Steny
Hogan
Hoyer.
Sr. He represented the 5th District of Maryland, which I now represent. His son is presently the second-term Republican governor of our state. When Larry Hogan Sr. died
Patricia
in 2017,
Vincent says Bernie and Nina.
every
2020.
obituary
Crossing
led with
fingers.
praise
Yes, I hope so.
for his
That'd be
act
awesome.
of political courage.
Bernie Ferez said he
Who
started
among
this talk in 1974.
Many years from now,
Jacob J says,
will
"Can you do a
receive such
collab
praise
with
as
Kyle
a man
K
or
secular
woman
talk?"
of courage.
We'll see. Maybe one day.
Who will regret
I think both of us are kind of like
regret
very
not having earned it?
what's the word? We're kind of loners in the way we
We've
do
talked a lot about
we do our
partisan
coverage.
differences.
I don't think either of us do that many interviews,
There is one person
but who knows?
who has spoken today who is
I'm open
neither
to
a
any of them.
member of the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party. His name is Justin Amash, who represents a Republican district.
He has a
He
point
left
here.
the Republican Party, and in doing so, he admonished his colleagues that, quote, "this president will only be in power for a short time, but excusing his behavior will forever tarnish your name." He spoke on this floor in support of the 2 articles
And Amash is very
that
right
we will
wing.
consider this evening.
Like he's incredibly right wing
Neither a
on
Democrat
policy,
nor a Republican.
but he could recognize that Trump is
Representative Amash, of course, is the only
should be
member of
impeached.
this House who has no allegiance to either party, but to his country. He is supporting.
Aaron
as
says
I've
regarding
said, both
silence in media about Bernie would actually help him.
We
Media
need not
blackout plan is already
ask who will be the
backfiring on
first
them.
to
What's
show
funny about
courage
it
by standing up to President
is they
Trump.
only count Dems. That's not all Bernie's base or
Question
what he's been spending
we
his
must
time
now
on,
ask is,
or where
who
he's
will
been
be the
spending his
last
time on voters.
to find
So
it?
they don't have accurate way to measure his support,
the pages of our history are filled
except
with
for
Americans
donations,
who had
which
the
they won't
courage
talk
to
about.
choose country
They're just reinforcing
over
his
party
image as an
or
outsider,
personality.
which is a good thing.
But as President Kennedy wrote,
I hear
the
you.
stories
Thanks,
of
Aaron.
past courage can teach. They can offer hope. They can provide inspiration.
Yeah, isn't it funny how they used to always talk about the money race in these
But they
elections?
cannot
All of a sudden, Bernie's
supply
leading in the money race
courage
through
itself.
individual donors.
For
No
this,
discussion about the money race. Doesn't matter
President
anymore,
Kennedy said,
apparently. Only
"Each
matter when it was
man,
corporations and wealthy donors
each
that they're reporting.
must
Like,
look
the media is
into
just
their
completely
own
disgusting.
soul." I urge my fellow colleagues in the House and
Yeah, how is he
yes,
still
in the
going?
Senate to look into your soul. Summons the courage to vote for our Constitution and our democracy. I understand we will all not see the same conclusion, but to do less betrays our oath and that
He's
of
been
our
up there for
founders,
almost 20 minutes.
who pledged their lives,
Is this
their fortune, and their
this is part of the
sacred
rules?
honor. Let us neither turn away from the
Okay.
evidence,
I don't know why he's allowed to
which
speak
to
this
me
long.
seems so clear,
This is absurd.
nor from our good conscience, which compels us to do what in our hearts we know to be right. Let us not allow the rule of law to end or for tyranny to find its toehold. With our votes today, we can bear true faith and allegiance to the vision of our founders, and we can show future generation what it truly means to be Americans first. Vote yes.
Oh my God.
Gentleman yields back.
He's done.
Gentleman from Georgia.
If I read that speech, I'd be done in probably 3 minutes. Took them about 20.
Madam Speaker,
That
a few
said,
weeks ago,
again, he
just
was
off
correct
of
on
this
the
floor,
issues, but the presentation was just not
I said
there.
that a dark cloud was descending upon this body.
Ghost
And
Dog
today,
says,
because of the clock
may history teach
and the
future
calendar,
Americans who stood up for the
it is
people in
closing.
America and who stood up for
It is
Trump and
amazing
not
to
the
me what I
country
just
and the
heard
rule
from
of
the
law.
majority leader,
Yep.
that Mr. Schiff and Mr. Nadler presented a compelling case for impeachment.
I also think that's kind of why it's important
if
to cover
this is a compelling case for
even though I don't cover it
impeachment,
very often. Like,
I'm
it's
not
important
sure
to
why we're here
have on the
right
record
now. It is
who
not
was backing
anywhere
this criminal
close
and who
to
wasn't.
compelling. But you know what is interesting is what I have heard today. The majority leader just spoke and said that if the president was given every opportunity to come prove his innocence. I tell you what, Madam Speaker, let me have just a few minutes, stop the clock, and let me go around to the press corps and to everybody here, and I'm going to accuse you of something. You did it. You did it. You did it. You did it. Now prove it's wrong.
Oh,
you
great
did it.
theater. Fantastic.
Guess what? You don't want to, because deep down you know that that's turning the entire jurisprudence of this country upside down. You're not guilty until you're proven. You're innocent. And today from this floor, we have heard the majority leader say this president is guilty and not the other way around.
Yeah, because
he is innocent, and
the
these
evidence
come nowhere close to
the evidence
proving
is
it.
not on your side.
But what is left of this body?
What's happening?
Let's have an honest conversation, Madam Speaker. What we have found over the past few weeks is it is okay for the majority to tear down a foreign leader because they can't make their case. They've called him a
Who could
liar,
believe a corrupt
or weak,
businessman
or
would
worse,
be
or
corrupt
as
as
was
a
called in the
president?
committee,
It's just
even
shocking.
look like a battered
Really
wife.
shocking.
It is below the dignity of this body and this majority to tear down a foreign leader because they can't make their case against this one.
Yep, theatrics. Exactly, Nicole Barrett. It's all theatrics.
We have broken rules in this House, even to this moment. Chairman Schiff and the others have broken House Resolution 660 by not turning over the things that they should be turning over. I still have not got a transcript. We still don't know what we got. And the White House still has not got their stuff. I guess minority hearing rule days don't matter either.
Throw
you see,
paper,
there
what
is
does
a
that do?
problem here
Means
because
you're
we're
like
going to
getting
vote this tonight while breaking the rules.
Oh.
What a shame.
They broke so many rules. Can't believe they're doing
But we
this.
also found
crazy,
a creative interpretation
crazy,
of
just gonna
minority
throw
rights.
papers around.
We saw the rise of partisanship because of things that have been
This is
done
all
even further. And we've even seen members
absurd.
smeared in reports by drive-by political hacks when they matched numbers of the majority or the ranking member and the members of the press. That ought to concern every one of you as much as it concerns every one of us. Nothing but a drive-by hit. But you know something? This majority leader also just said, wherever law ends, tyranny begins. But I will say this, in this
I'd rather
House,
hear
wherever
Steny
the
Hoyer for
rules are
20 minutes than hear
disregarded,
one more
chaos
second
and mob
of this
rule
guy.
actually began, and the majority has taken that to a new level. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority, and it ain't going to be that fun. Because when you look at it, when
You're not going to be there.
Actually trash
Tell
the
you
rules
that.
of this house, you ought to really look at what did you gain at the end by trashing
Though
the
Georgia maybe you will be.
you claim to love. That's the things we found out so far.
Or maybe not.
But you know, they're
They've
really
rigged the
careful
votes there
saying,
enough.
oh, you want to deal in process and process. As I said last night in the Rules Committee where they didn't want to listen, I'll win on process and I will win on facts because we have the truth on our side. Let me remind you that here's what the process actually says. There was no pressure. Look at the call. President Zelensky, President Trump, no pressure. There was no conditionality. There was nothing done to get the aid, and the aid actually came. There were 5 meetings. But when you look at it right now, none of which matter, because right now the dark cloud is descending upon this house. And I am fearful, Madam Speaker. When I look out in that abyss, I don't know what I see, but I tell you what I do see. I see coming up a president who will put his head down even through this sham impeachment, and he will do his job. He will put the American people first. He will tell them that I care about you. He will still put the economy first, and he
Standing
will make
applause
sure
for that
this
performance.
country stands strong. That's
Fantastic.
what I see in this abyss. That's where we're going. And Madam Speaker, it is with that hope in the future that I recognize right now that I yield 1 minute to the Republican leader of this House, the Republican from California, Mr. McCarthy.
Gentleman's recognized.
Oh, we're going from bad to
Madam
worse.
Speaker,
I must warn you, I'm about to say something my Democratic colleagues hate to hear.
Does he get 20 minutes as well?
Donald J. Trump is President of the United States.
Oh, we're already off to a great start.
He is president today, he'll be president tomorrow, and he will be president when this impeachment is over.
Until 2020, when he will be voted out.
Madam Speaker, when they accept that, maybe this House can get back to work for the American people. Now tonight I rise.
Get back to work.
Not
There's like
as the leader of
400
the
friggin'
opposition
bills on Mitch McConnell. They have passed. Democrats have passed like a record number of things, and the Senate isn't taking up any of it.
I rise as Kevin McCarthy.
But it doesn't matter.
Citizen.
Facts doesn't matter.
No better.
Doesn't matter at all.
No worse than the 435 representatives that are in this chamber, or the 330 million Americans watching this institution make what I believe to be one of the
J. Max
worst
says all these Southern
decisions we have
Republicans reminds me of Looney
It doesn't
Tunes
matter whether
Foghorn
you're a
Leghorn.
Democrat or a Republican,
Or
whether you're
Frog- is
liberal
Froghorn
or you're
Leghorn?
conservative, whether you're the first generation or the 10th, at our core, we are all American, all of us. We choose our future. We choose what kind of nation we want to be. Here's our choice tonight.
Yeah, it's Foghorn Leghorn. I'm like,
Will
that
we
sounds
let
crazy for a second.
impeachment become an exercise
Yeah, that guy's great.
of raw
I just said
political power,
that character is great.
regardless if it damages our country? Or will we protect the proper grounds and process for impeachment now and in the future? For months, Democrats and many in the media have attempted to normalize the
Magic says,
impeachment
according
process
to
that would
Republicans,
remove
defense
a
lawyers
duly
shouldn't
elected
exist.
president from office.
Repugs?
After 3 years of breathless and baseless outrage, this is their last attempt to stop the Trump presidency.
I do declare.
Madam Speaker, Speaker Pelosi even recently admitted that Democrats have been working on this impeachment for 2.5 years.
They keep pulling this line out. Okay, what's the source
Those were
of this?
her words. They were
Because
not mine.
Nancy Pelosi has not been pushing for
Because
impeachment
they
at all.
lost to him in 2016, they'll do anything or say anything to stop him in 2020.
So we know that's BS. But what are they actually
That's
using
not
to say
America.
this?
That's not how democratic republics behave.
Maybe someone in the
Elections
chat has the answer.
matter. Voters matter.
And in 11 months, the people's voice will be heard.
Like Nancy Pelosi had to be dragged to impeachment. Like, they could have impeached her with the Mueller report. There was enough in there. And then because she didn't, they acted like, oh, there was nothing in there. What a waste of time it was. Like, Democrats have no idea how to fight.
85 days
Pelosi's a
ago,
horrible leader. Horrible. Schumer and Pelosi are terrible.
To impeach the President of the United States. She
Thank
wrote the
you,
script
Ricky
and
Williams.
created an artificial timeline to make the details fit. Why else are we doing this just hours before Christmas? If that's all it was, a rush to judgment, she could be forgiven.
I have no idea where this 2 years thing
But
comes
before
from.
the Speaker saw one word or one shred of evidence, she moved to impeach. In the past, in this body, such a step demanded a vote from all of us from the start. But not only did she move to impeach before she gave this House and the hundreds of millions of people we represent a say in whether to pursue an impeachment inquiry, she threw out the bipartisan standards this House gave President Nixon and Clinton. That is why I immediately sent
Clinton
Speaker
was
Pelosi a letter
impeached
asking her
over
to
lying
follow the rules
about
of
an
history,
affair.
of tradition, and follow those standards that have served America well. What did she say? She rejected it. She rejected it because Democrats knew a fair process would crumble their case.
No, because
A fair process would have
the
exposed
way impeachment
to the
works
American
is
public
they
what
vote
many
on
already
their own
knew.
rules. That's how it works. That's the process.
Democrats have wanted to impeach President Trump
Oh my God.
since the day he was elected. And nothing was
just
going to
never
get in their
ending.
way, certainly not the truth. Madam Speaker, Chairman Schiff said he had evidence, more than circumstantial, of collusion. That was false. In January, where we all stood in this body,
Ricky Williams
we
says,
stood
and
up, we
when
raised our
more
hands,
truth
we
eventually
swore that
comes to
we'd
light of
uphold the
Trump, and it will, you Republicans will have married yourselves to its corruptness by your votes. Yep. I can't wait for this to backfire. I cannot wait for a lot of these dipshits
And
to
a
be
few mere
voted out
hours
in
after
2020.
that, Congresswoman Tlaib said she was going to impeach the mother effer.
Damn right. An actual fighter.
Those are not my words. A year before taking the majority, Chairman Nadler campaigned to the Democrats that he wanted to be chairman of the Judiciary Committee where impeachment is.
I don't know when this is
New
done,
York
Devin. I'm
Times
sorry.
writes, Madam Speaker, because
No
he
one's
is the
making you watch.
strongest member to
You can-
lead a potential
I don't know. Pause and
impeachment.
come back when it's over.
And Congressman Raskin,
But I hope it's over
a leading
soon.
Democrat
I
on
hope
the
the votes
Judiciary
happen soon.
Committee, one that the Democrats had represented in the Rules Committee for these articles just yesterday.
I imagine the vote has to go by pretty
Told the
quickly,
crowd
right? I
he
know there's
would
a lot of them
impeach
there,
President
but like,
Trump 2 days before he was ever sworn into office.
can't take that long.
What we've seen is a rigged process that has led to the most partisan and least
This guy
credible
must be going for 20 minutes as
in
well.
the
This is
history
crazy.
of America. That is this legacy. Any prosecutor in this country would be disbarred for such blatant bias, especially if that prosecutor was the fact witness, the judge, and the jury. Madam Speaker, Democrats haven't just failed on process, they've also failed on evidence. I've heard a lot of debate on this floor today, but I haven't heard one member of this body dispute this simple fact. President Trump provided lethal aid to Ukraine. It came before the call, it came after the call, and it continues to this day. President Trump provided Ukraine
caught.
tank-busting bombs. The previous administration,
He was caught.
They gave blankets.
And he tried to get.
This is the truth.
He tried to get evidence.
Meanwhile, the
or he tried to
Democrats'
get,
case is based on
Ukraine to investigate
second-hand
Biden.
opinions and
Like this is
hearsay.
not.
Simply
it's all
put,
there. The witnesses.
There
everything.
are no grounds
It's all there.
for impeachment.
it doesn't, facts don't matter.
Constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley, and I would challenge to say he's probably the most respected, and we all know it. A Democrat who did not vote for the president said under oath there was no bribery, there was no extortion, no obstruction of justice, and no abuse of power. Based on the facts, based on the truth, based on the lack of evidence, Turley called this the fastest, thinnest, and weakest impeachment in the U.S. history. Such a definitive answer should be the end of all of this. But Speaker Pelosi is still moving forward with this impeachment without evidence of facts or truth or public support.
Can you imagine?
The Speaker says it is
Hillary
out
Clinton
of allegiance
or Obama
to our
did
founders.
anything that Trump did.
On this, I agree. I agree
Republicans
with the
had to
Speaker. We should
invent.
listen to the founders.
They had to
And if one does, it's very
invent
clear
something
that this
to
impeachment
be angry about when
is
it came to Obama.
unfounded
They had to
and
invent
improper.
stuff. Oh, he
In the
saluted when
Federalist
he was holding
Papers,
his coffee.
Alexander
Oh, he wore a
Hamilton
tan
wrote,
suit.
There
How
will
long did
always, there would
Benghazi go
always
on
be
for?
the
They had to
greatest
invent
danger that impeachment
various
would
ways
be
to go after
driven by
Democrats
partisan
because they couldn't actually find
animosity
anything
instead of
legitimate
real
that bothered
demonstrations
them.
of innocent
Now, when it comes to the left
argument.
criticisms of Democrats, there's a ton. But when it comes
That
to right-wing
impeachment
criticism
would be
of Democrats,
driven by
they're already like a
partisan
right-wing party.
animosity
Like, it's kind of hard
instead
to
of real
find
demonstrations
anything to
of
get them on.
innocence or guilt. James Madison, another author of the Federalist
All this
Papers,
drama.
wrote, "The danger of legislative abuse must lead to the same tyranny as is threatened by executive abuse." The founders did not want impeachment to be used for political or partisan battles. If my colleagues do not want to follow the constitutional high standards for undoing a national election, perhaps you could have followed Speaker Pelosi's standard, at least the one she promised to follow back in March. It was a very sensible standard. She says impeachment is so divisive that the evidence must be overwhelming, compelling, and bipartisan. Not one of those criteria have been met today. Based on the facts, based on the evidence, based on the truth, this impeachment even fails that Pelosi test. Those now who say removing President Trump would protect the integrity of our democracy have it backwards. By removing a duly elected president on empty articles of impeachment, Congress will erode the public trust in our system of government. I understand you dislike the president, his beliefs, the way he governs, and even the people who voted for him. How do I know this? Because you say so day in and day out. In 2016, they even dismissed his supporters. Remember calling us deplorables? Now they are trying to disqualify our voice before the 2020 election. They want to undo
I'm just zoning out right
the
now.
results of the last election.
Ghost Dog says, "Hey
to
Trump, no
influence the
impeachment."
next one.
Wait, hey Trump, wave. No
As I
impeachment
said, President
asterisk next to
Trump will
Obama's
still be
name.
president when this is all over.
Wait, what? I don't get it.
But Congress will have wasted months of time and taxpayers' dollars on impeachment.
I don't quite get it, but
rather
thank
than
you.
doing what
Thank you,
America's
Ghost Dog,
people want us
for
to do.
your super chat.
It didn't have to be this way. Is this why
I'm
we
beginning to
came
get
here
warm
to serve?
now. Beginning to get warm in this sweater.
To trample on
under
due
these lights.
process rights? To issue more subpoenas than laws? To appease the new Democrat socialist base?
That's right. Goodbye, dipshit. Did he hear me?
That is not leadership.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That is raw political politics, and you know it.
After you just called the base
By
a bunch of
refusing to
socialists.
acknowledge the truth or
Okay.
follow the facts, by substituting partisan animosity for real demonstration of innocence or guilt,
And by continuing a
I think these
3-year
people
effort
actually
to
believe their own
undermine the
bullshit. I
president,
do. A lot of them, I think
this
they do. They have
impeachment
to.
has divided this nation
People always convince themselves that
without any
they're on the
concern for
correct side of something,
repercussions.
even when they're wrong.
Moreover,
They justify it to
politicizing this
themselves
process
in whatever
has
way.
discredited the United
So
States House of
a lot of these
Representatives
people, I think they've convinced
and could
themselves that they're on the
forever
correct side of this
weaken
issue.
the remedy of impeachment.
This guy, I don't know. Just could
To
be just
again
pure
quote
bullshit artist.
Professor Turley,
But a lot of them
"It is
definitely
the
convince
Democrats'
themselves.
rush to impeachment on these grounds with unfair procedures that is an abuse of power." History will write that. Madam Speaker, as I said at the
History will
beginning,
write that.
we face a choice. Do you trust the wisdom of the people, or do you deny them a say in their government?
You mean the ones that
Fortunately,
voted for
people
Hillary
will
Clinton?
have the opportunity to speak up and render their verdict
Like-
in 11 months to my fellow Americans. To my fellow Americans, if you
It's
prove
hilarious they
of the
keep
way
going
of this House
back to that
has
argument.
conducted
The American
their business,
people need a voice
if you
here.
want
Yeah,
to
they
see
didn't
your
vote for
tax
Trump.
dollars go
Holy.
forward to endless investigations,
They just create their own
support this
world.
impeachment. But if you want to restore a working Congress, like the previous Congress that listened to you and worked to bring the best economy
Socially
in
inept
this
Spider-Man
country
says, "Can
has
we
ever
please ban
seen,
conservative ideology when we live in out gay space communism?" Yeah, totally. I'm looking forward to gay space communism. People like this will be shot into the sun.
and one that once again will work with the president to get things done for you and your family, then join with us in rejecting this baseless impeachment. That's what's wonderful about this system of ours. We are a government of, by, and for the people. Always
Except our
remember,
elections.
we work for you, not the other way around. Now, I will say this stronger
As he is completely
and
doing
with
this to
more
save his own
conviction
ass, his own seat.
than I have ever said it before. In this time of great trial and tribulation, may God bless America. I yield back.
Okay. Andrew T. says the amount of logical fallacies is crazy. Demonstrating intent is one of the most difficult things to do, and they are making blatant,
Gentleman from California is
blatant statements
recognized.
about individuals' intent. Does he even philosophy, bro?
House will
That's
be in
all they
order.
got, though, right? The evidence is all like that's all they
Gentleman
have.
from California.
So they have to invent this whole.
Madam Speaker, I recognize myself for
This
the
whole
remainder
other
of our
argument.
time.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, my colleagues, after 8 hours, let us return to where we began with the articles themselves. Article 1 charges the President of the United States with abusing the power of his office by coercing an ally into cheating in a U.S. election on his behalf. It charges the President of the United States. It charges the
Be in order. The gentleman has a right to be heard.
It charges the President
So
of the
the
United
gentleman shall
States.
suspend.
Dave Wampler says, "Why do they keep denying it happened?
Gentlemen,
Should
may
argue
keep
on
music.
impeachability."
It charges the President of the United States with his
I think it's.
abusing his power.
I hear you, but
by
they rather
withholding
deny
official
reality.
acts, by
Their entire
withholding
party is
a
about
White House
denying reality.
meeting
So for
that
them,
the
it's normal
President
to
of
deny
Ukraine
reality.
desperately sought to establish the support of his most important benefactor, the United States, by withholding hundreds of millions of dollars of military aid to a nation at war in order to get that nation to intervene in our election by smearing his opponent. That is the gravamen of the charge in Article 1. And what is the defense from my colleagues? Now, I've listened carefully to my colleagues for the last 8 hours, and I have to say, it's been hard for me to follow. But it amounts, I think, when you cut through it all, when you cut through all the sound and the fury,
That was like a rare, real
signifying
moment from
nothing,
Adam Schiff.
what it really amounts to is this. Why should we care?
Please don't spam the chat, even though it's
Why
Bernie's
should we
name.
care about what the president did to Ukraine? Well, first of all, we should care about our allies. We should care about Ukraine. We should care about a country struggling to be free and a democracy. We used to care about democracy. We used to care about our allies. We used to stand up to Putin and Russia. We used to.
We used to.
I know the party of Ronald Reagan used to. Why should we care about Ukraine? But of course, it's about more than Ukraine. It's about us. It's about our national
Party of
security.
Ronald Reagan is what
Their fight
led
is
to all
our
of this.
Fight. Their defense is our defense.
That's why
When Russia remakes the map
poor and
of
the middle
Europe
class got
for the
destroyed
first time
as all
since
the
World
income
War
went to
II
the
by
top.
dint of military force, and
That's why there
Ukraine
are
fights
so
back,
many more
it is
homeless people
our fight
who were put out on the
too.
street
And when the president sacrifices
and not given the mental
our
help they
interests,
needed.
our national security,
But sure, keep
for his
acting like Ronald
election,
Reagan's great.
he is
Democrats
sacrificing
are horrible
our
even when they're
country
fighting
for
Republicans.
his
It's
personal
crazy.
gain. That is the gravamen of Article 1. Article 2. Article 2 charges the President of the United States with obstructing the Congress, with denying the Congress any witness, any document, by telling all of his administration people, you will not appear. You will ignore a co-equal branch of government. And what is the defense to this from my colleagues? Again, it is, why should we care? He is the president of our party. Why should we care if he ignores this Congress? Well, I remind my friends
I couldn't do any of their jobs though.
that
Like
he
I
will
couldn't.
not be the last president. There will be another president.
I couldn't
and
be like
you may
AOC.
be one
It's
day,
too
although
much
you
to
do
deal
not
with.
act like it, you may one day be in the
Your
majority.
own party is full of dipshits, as
and you will
the other
want to
party
hold a
obviously is.
president accountable.
Like it's too much to have to
And
deal
what
with.
will you say when that president says, you are a paper tiger, you have no oversight, I can ignore your subpoenas? What will you say? What will you argue? Well, no, that was different. Then we were in the minority. Then it was a Republican president. Will that be your argument? Is
ETS
that
Gaming
how
Pro
little
says, just here to say
faith
that,
you
David,
have
I
in
love your
our
work, so thank you, but
democracy
please,
and our
everyone
Constitution?
knock doors
Is
for
that how
Bernie.
poorly you
Let's
defend
get
and
this
uphold
bread.
that
I yield my
Constitution?
time back
But
to David.
finally, let me ask
Totally.
this question.
Knock on doors
It
for Bernie.
overrides it all.
Seriously.
Why should we care
Volunteer.
about any of this?
You can do it. Go
And
to
I will
Bernie's
bring you to
website.
one conversation
Sign up.
that came to light.
Donate.
Because it's
all
not
that
the most
stuff. Get
important
involved. Phone. You can
conversation, but
phone
in
bank
many
from your
ways,
home.
It is the
Like,
most revealing. It
get
took
involved.
place on September 14th.
That's how you're going to,
in Ukraine, when Ambassador Volker
change anything, really.
sat down with Andrei Yermak. the
J-Mac
top
says, lost me at
advisor
Reagan,
to
dog.
Zelensky.
Yeah.
And he
Schiff
did what
should
he
not
should
have
do.
gone
He supported
to,
the rule of law, and he said,
the Reagan line.
you, Andrei Yermak, should not investigate.
But they're
the
always
last
trying to appeal
president.
to conservative Democrats because that's
President
what they're told. They're
Poroshenko,
told, oh,
for
most
political
people are,
reasons. You should not
center
engage
right,
in
center
political
left. They're in the middle somewhere.
investigations. And you
nope.
know what Yermak
not
said?
based on policy. They're
Oh,
not.
You mean like you want
The center
us to
on
do
policy
with
when
the
it comes to
Bidens
when
and
it
the
comes to
Clintons?
Washington D.C. is
And in
pro
that
business. Most of the country is not pro big
brutal
business.
retort, we see why
Most
we
of the country
should
wants
care.
Medicare for all. They want
Because what
free
he
public
was
college.
saying
They want
is,
a Green New Deal.
You, America, have forgotten what it means to uphold the
They
rule
want
of
higher
law.
wages.
You have forgotten what it means to say that no one is above the law. We are a struggling democracy, but even we know better
Sensei,
than that.
I stomach American politics because I can.
What is at risk
I can see the
here?
impact of it worldwide, not just in America.
What is
So,
at
like,
risk
if you have a
here
Bernie as
is the
president,
very idea of America.
it will change the conversation globally.
That idea holds.
Especially if
that
you get
we are a
something like
nation of
Medicare for all.
laws,
That includes
not of
dental care,
men.
which
We are a
Canadians don't have.
nation that believes in a rule of law.
We will definitely have
when
dental
we say
care
we uphold
soon
the
after
Constitution,
if
we're not talking about
that
a
were to
piece
go
of
through.
parchment. We're talking about a beautiful
But that's a small example of
architecture
America's
in
impact.
which
I mean, America's impact when it comes to the
ambition
World
is
Bank, the
set
IMF,
against
how
ambition
the
in
global
which
South
no
is treated.
branch of government can
It's-
dominate
yeah.
another.
The impact
That
is
is what it means to uphold the
it's massive.
Constitution. If you
So it's
ignore
important to
it,
cover
if
it
you
even
say
if,
the president may refuse
seems a little-
to comply, may refuse
a little disorienting
lawful
or,
process,
I
may
don't know,
coerce an
frustrating at
ally,
times.
may cheat in an election because he's the president of our party. You do not uphold our Constitution. You do not uphold your oath of office. Well, I will tell you this. I will uphold mine. I will vote to impeach Donald Trump. I yield back.
All right. Vote now? What? What's happening? Vote, vote, vote. Let's do it. Let's impeach the MF.
All time for general debate has expired.
Good.
Pursuant to
Though AOC never spoke, did she?
Pursuant to House
Maybe she's somewhere
Resolution
else.
767, the previous question is ordered on the resolution as amended. The question of adoption of the resolution as amended shall be divided between the two articles. The question now occurs on the adoption of Article 1. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Gentlemen,
They obviously do.
Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I ask the ayes and nays on that vote.
It's because they yelled louder.
The yeas and nays.
By the numbers, it's obvious who
The
has
yeas and
this.
nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, let's keep a close eye on what's going on here.
And members are now voting on the first of two articles
There
of
you go. We're being
impeachment.
told
This
what's
one
happening.
concerns abuse of power, and it states that, quote, President Trump withheld aid in a White House meeting to pressure Ukraine for an investigation on a political rival. Only a simple majority of members present and voting is needed to approve this article.
There you go.
431 seated members of Congress right now. There are 4 vacancies. Here's the vote.
Riv Mitsu says, I propose everyone speaking either or both be under oath or a lie detector, at least for select situations as these, though legally, ethically gray. Yeah, that's the only problem. But I hear you. If there's a way to like put fear into the eyes or into the minds of these politicians that they cannot lie when they're doing this, that like a lie detector might catch you, then might have a Congress that's a little more honest. Andre Schwartz says, David, what can we Canadians do to support Bernie Sanders? Can we donate to Bernie from Canada? No, you can't. Can't donate to Bernie. There's no way to, as Canadians, to really do anything. Just if you got American relatives, I don't know, inform them. But otherwise, we don't have much of a say in the American election. Let's watch this vote. What's going on here? I mean, it's obvious what's going to happen. Yeah, so there's one nay from Democrat. I think there's two I guess one Democrat now, because there's 2 Democrats in the House that were voting against impeachment. I think one of them is now a Republican. So I assume that's going to mean there's going to be one nay vote for Democrats. And the GOP vote in unison. And yeah, obviously this is going to be a yay vote. Like, why are we wasting our... Like, they know it's a yay vote. Gray Bright says, thank you for your insightful and incisive, highly informative channel, David. I'm driving out to Iowa from California to knock on a bunch of them. That's awesome. Awesome. I love that. Wow. That's dedication there. Going to Iowa from California to knock on doors. I love that. Good work. Yeah, maybe to fill some time here. I do have some. I'll do this on my Friday stream. All the polls where Bernie's looking pretty good. But every poll I've seen this week, Bernie's looking pretty solid. New poll in California, he's doing pretty well. Emerson poll, basically makes it a 2-person race. Let me show you this briefly as the votes are coming in. So look at this. Look at that. 2-person race right now, according to Emerson poll. Sanders and Biden. Warren dropped off considerably. Buttigieg is still staying around like 8%. Very interesting how this race is unfolding, at least according to this poll. Again, one poll, but there are other polls I'll cover on Friday that make it pretty good for Bernie. Votes are still pouring in. Let's quickly watch this hilarious moment.
Historic vote today. Before you take this historic vote today, 1 week before Christmas, I want you to keep this in mind. When Jesus was falsely accused of treason, Pontius Pilate gave Jesus the opportunity to face his accusers. During that sham trial, Pontius Pilate afforded more rights to Jesus than the Democrats have afforded this president in this process.
Yep. Donald Trump is Jesus. I mean, that shows you right there who's crazy, who's not. That's all you really got to show. Whoever side that guy is on, they're on the crazy side. It's as simple as that. Coming in, votes coming in. I mean, the upside to only having 2 articles of impeachment is I don't got to sit here that long. So there's going to be this vote, then there's going to be one more vote, and we should be out of here. Also, I'm not sure if you guys saw this.
The Speaker? Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker?
Well, you know, when she first got in and was named Speaker, I met her, and I'm very impressed by her. I think she's a very impressive person. I like her a lot. But I was surprised that she didn't do more in terms of Bush and going after Bush. It just seemed like she was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
Absolutely, for the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the
war.
And he's right.
He got us into the war with lies. And, I mean, look at the trouble Bill Clinton got into with something that was totally unimportant. And they tried to impeach him, which was nonsense. And yet Bush got us into this horrible war with lies, by lying, by saying they had weapons of mass destruction, by saying all sorts of things that turned out not to be true.
I like that, Trump. What happened to that guy? Like, it's crazy. It's so crazy. Like, to see somebody that's like progressive commentary that Donald Trump is offering there back in the day. And now look at him. Just a horrible human being. Sorry, I think I missed a super chat. Edward Cote says, I had an idea for a law that Congress must be under oath while deliberating on the floor, but I'm not so sure about unintended ramifications. Interesting. Enter Name says, you are way better than lame David A. Packman. Thank you for the compliment, but I'm not here to disparage other people. Is that another one? Andrew T. says, insert comment expressing fondness of my biased ideology that was likely arrived at in an uninformed and emotional manner. Darn you, my strawman opposition. Good job, my politically preferred guy. That's great. Yeah, that's pretty much copy and paste what the GOP were saying the entire time. Two Dems voting nay. Yeah, so I guess that Democrat isn't Republican yet. But yeah, there was going to be two Democrat no votes on this. And then the rest are in support of it. By the way, those two people that are voting no, their seats are done. Like, I hope they are. I mean, if people come out the way they're supposed to be coming out, it seems likely that they're going to face some fierce opposition from Democratic voters. Okay, it's got to be okay. I guess 6 minutes, but how long does it take to really put these votes in. Come on. Still 43 no votes for the Democrats here. Enter name says, would you say you are more to the left of David P? I got to be honest, I don't watch him all that often. From what I hear, I think I am. I think I am based on what I hear, but I don't know. I don't watch him. I don't really watch him. Five minutes still. Oh, this guy was great. As in disgusting.
People don't like President Trump. They think he's loud, they think he can be arrogant, they think sometimes he says bad words and sometimes he's rude to people, and to their sensitive natures, they've been offended. I get that, I really do. But let's be clear, this vote, this day, has nothing to do with Ukraine. It has nothing to do with abuse of power. It has nothing to do with obstruction of Congress. This vote,
in fact, it does,
this day, is about one thing and one thing only. They hate this president. They hate those of us who voted for him. They think we're stupid. They think we made a mistake.
True.
They think Hillary Clinton should be the president, and they want to fix that.
Well, I don't really.
That's what this vote is about. They want to take away my vote and throw it in the trash. They want to take away my president and delegitimize him so that he cannot be reelected. That's what this vote is about. And for those who think this started with this investigation,
you know, it's so funny. They go back and forth on this point. They keep acting like, oh, voters are going to come out in 2020. You better believe it. They're going to come. They're going to support Donald Trump. And then you have the other side of Republicans saying this is going to hurt him. Like, they don't have a coherent argument here. They really don't, like. They just go all over the place because they know a lot of them know they're full of crap.
You've been trying to impeach this president since before he was sworn into office. Some of you introduced articles of impeachment before prayer for that. Fully and sadly, pages of examples. That's what this is about. And if you think if this impeachment is successful, the next president, I promise you, is going to be impeached. And the next president after that, if you set this bar as being impeachable, every president...
If you set this bar, conveniently forgetting how Bill Clinton was impeached, or what he was impeached over lying about an affair. That was when the bar was set, and Democrats didn't even impeach Bush over an illegal war. So, total BS. Total BS. Regardless of what Democrats did during Trump's 4 years or 8 years, they will try and impeach the next president regardless, because that's what they do. They make an enemy out of the president. That's what they do. But if they get completely wiped out in 2020, it's going to be a lot harder to make an enemy out of people when there's a lot less of you in Congress. I'm missing some super chats here. Wendy Kelly Friedman says, David, thank you for your channel and for having such a passion and insight for American progressive politics. I value your input. You and Kyle are my favorites. Go Bernie, and thank you. Thank you. J-Max says, Trump is a weird character, saying in 2008 to impeach Bush, but back in the early 90s, buying a news article and writing that a group of young, innocent black men deserve the death penalty. Yeah, he's really all over the place. I think he likes the spotlight, but he does occasionally have those takes, like about Pelosi, so it's definitely odd. Seth sends $20. Whoa. Says, you are amazing. Thank you. And also thank you, J Mac and Wendy, for your very generous donations as well. I think I forgot somebody else. Why aren't they all showing up here? Yeah, sorry, if I missed your super chat, they're not all showing up for me at the top of the screen like they should be. Stephen LaFleche says, could we get rid of Doug Ford like this? Doesn't quite work the same way, but that'd be good. I think I missed somebody else. Scrolling up here. Enter name says, if Trump is a war criminal, isn't Obama too? Yeah, for drone strikes. But it's, first of all, I wouldn't, if we're talking war criminals, Bush is the real war criminal here. Trump hasn't been as, okay, it's so, I hate this debate because like it's all just varying degrees of terrible. Like, yeah, Bush is bad, Trump is bad, Obama is bad on this issue. They just continue the war machine regardless. But at the same time, there are definitely varying degrees, and it's important not to lose sight of that. But I just hate that discussion. I think I got everybody that I missed. If I missed you, I apologize, because the YouTube interface isn't always what it should be doing. Isn't always doing what it should be doing. Okay. So, I assume, okay, this vote's going to end. I don't know why. They're wasting their time again. Like, we know how this is going to go. Then there's going to be one more vote, and we'll see how, see what happens then. Okay, I think I got everybody's super chat. Oh, I missed Jessica Hillman. Jessica Hillman says you can phone bank for Bernie from another country. You have to be American, though, don't you? I'm pretty sure you can't. I'm pretty sure you can't volunteer for the Sanders campaign if you're not American, because that actually would be direct interference in elections.
And President Trump has been impeached by the House of Representatives for abuse of power.
There you go.
This one concerns the abuse of power, and it states that President Trump withheld aid and a White House meeting to pressure Ukraine for an investigation on a political rival. The next vote will be on obstruction of Congress.
Are they going to discuss it before the vote, or what? Look at them. They're all just, like, socializing. Canadians can volunteer? Daniel Jin says that. Maybe it's true. I mean, I just assumed they couldn't. But that's pretty awesome. If we can. Jared Aguirre. Sorry if I screwed your last name up. Do you think the partisanship we see today is the result of weaponizing ignorance in the information/social media era? Net access was limited 20 years ago. Weaponizing ignorance in the information social media era. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a part of it. I don't know, right? Like, it's definitely gotten worse, and at least part of that has to be attributed to the fact that you don't really have to. There is no like main source of information anymore, like how there used to be. Like, you know, the newspapers were like the main source, as well as, you know, television news. And back in the 80s, there was some actual restrictions on how you can cover politics. Now it's just a free-for-all. So if you're conservative, you could just watch Fox News and be stuck in that bubble. And that began to lead into like the Clinton era, where there was just, you know, total partisanship when it came to his impeachment. And then, yeah, the internet is another aspect, of course. Like, facts aren't really facts. It's kind of the issue. Like, I mean, facts are facts, but you don't have to believe them. Clearly, watching the Republicans here discuss this. So, yeah. And the internet allows people to just push narratives that are based in complete BS, but it allows them to do it with some air of you know, I don't know, authority somewhat, because they can say, oh, well, this information's from this source over here, even though that source, you look into that source, okay, where's their information coming from? Oh, it's actually this, they're actually getting their information from, certain strategists that are massaging the facts to make them work in a way that work in your favor. So yeah, there's just so much, there's so many different narratives that regardless of where you are in an issue, you're able to find a way to defend your position, even though it's not based in reality. But certain things, like you can't, it gets to a point like with climate change where the planet's just cooking itself. And I mean, you saw, I don't know if any of you saw this, but Australia just had its hottest day on record a couple days ago. And it's been crazy there, like 40 degrees Celsius weather, like every single day. It's been nuts. And that's now. What's Australia in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, not to mention the rest of the world? Like, it gets to a point where you can't deny certain facts that are impacting your life directly. So it's an issue where it's really tough to know how to fix it. Except getting people involved. Because I think people largely, I know this sounds crazy because Trump's president right now, but I think most people are logical. The issue is most people aren't involved and don't vote because they don't feel represented in this political system. And not even just America, like politics at large. A lot of people feel unrepresented. So you have to be able to reach out to people that are not normally engaged in politics and be able to get them out to vote, get them involved, get them volunteering. And again, not just voting, but actually being engaged in what is going on, engaged in what's happening in their government. Because ultimately that's what dictates how their life works. Like that dictates a base level of what we all expect as human beings when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to education. So people have to get involved because if we don't get involved, this stuff just begins eroding away. When no one's watching what's happening, that's when they're allowed to kind of just rob everybody blind. So people have to be engaged in the process. They have to get involved. And I know people have busy lives. They work 2 or 3 jobs, which makes it even harder to be involved. But at the very least, you have to vote. At the very least. And you have to, at the same time, kind of know who you're voting for, which is another problem. But because I think most people are at least somewhat logical, they'll vote the correct way if they actually go out and vote. So that's like, when voter turnout is up, Democrats win. That's a good example right there, that most people are actually somewhat logical on these issues, or I should say somewhat rational. But when voter turnout's low, the GOP wins because those voters are engaged regardless. There's less of them, but they're going to be out and voting regardless. So you have to get non-voters out to vote, young people out to vote. That's how you actually begin to change who represents you in Washington. I'm missing some super chats here. Jared, again, says, I don't see a cure to this issue without regulation. Yeah, I mean, it's a massive discussion. It's kind of hard to know how to go about it. Nova Caesar sends $1. Thank you, Nova. Andrew Foster says, who's the Republican that voted to impeach? There isn't one. That's an independent. That's Amash, Justin Amash, who was Republican, but now he's independent. Super chat. Okay, yeah. YouTube is not always working properly. So I'll just scroll through the chat in case I missed. Some here. Chris says, can you explain more about the impeachment process? Well, it's going on right now in front of your eyes. So there's there's 2 articles of impeachment. They just voted on this one, and it passed clearly. At some point, they're going to vote on the second one, right? Yeah, this is just abuse of power. So they're going to vote on the second article. I don't know what the delay here is. I guess you're still waiting for votes. But the timer's off, or the timer's out. So I don't know what's going on right now, to be honest with you. I feel like they should be moving on at this point to the next article.
And on this Article
Here we go.
1, impeachment, abuse of power, 2 Democrats have voted no. That's Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, Colin Peterson of Minnesota. Jeff Van Drew is still reported to be changing his party registration to Republican after impeachment. And voting present, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii.
Shut up. Shut up. Tulsi Gabbard voted present? What is she doing? I mean, this is what she's doing. This is what she's doing. She's going for a Fox News gig. This is why she's not running again. She's going to vote present here. It gives her a nice in to Fox News or conservative commentary. She's been on Breitbart. She's been amazing. Did she say she was going to do this?
On this vote, the yeas are 230. The nays are 197.
Amazing.
Present is 1.
Amazing.
Article
What a horrible person.
1 is adopted.
Oh my God, the way she tricked so many people.
The
Unbelievable.
The question is on adoption of Article 2.
Unbelievable.
The question is on the adoption of Article 2. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed,
Unbelievable.
nay.
Tulsi Gabbard didn't vote for it.
The ayes have it. The ayes have it. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition? For what
Tulsi was
purpose
done
does the
anyways.
gentleman-
She's not running in her seat, so she's free to do whatever she
For what
wants.
purpose
So
does
she's
the gentleman from New
she's
York
vying for a
seek
job somewhere right now.
recognition?
I ask for a
That's
roll
what she's
call
doing.
vote.
A recorded vote is requested.
She's all been about herself
Those
this whole time.
favoring
That's why she
recorded-
supported Bernie in
recorded
2016.
vote will still rise.
Because it went against the popular.
That will be in order.
It went against what was popular at the time.
Sufficient
It gave her
number
a
have
voice. It
arisen.
gave her
A
some
recorded
attention.
Vote is orders. Members will record
The whole time
their
she's
votes
done this.
by electronic device.
We just didn't know back then.
Is
We
a
assumed she had some principles.
5-minute vote.
Incredible.
And
Sir-
President Trump has been impeached by the House of Representatives for abuse of power. The House is now voting on Article 2, obstruction of Congress, which says that President Trump instructed administration officials not to comply with congressional subpoenas.
Sir Fappington says if Donald Trump were to miraculously support Medicare for all, would Republicans fall in line for it? He wouldn't. He's too controlled by people around him. There was a story out. I didn't see the actual story on this, but I heard Cenk mention this, that Trump was actually for either for free college or for canceling student debt. One of those two, which sounds crazy. But people around him were like, no, we're not going to do that. So he was reeled in, but he was freaking out a little bit because he's seeing Bernie and the popularity, and he's seeing the popularity of these policies. And he actually has the right political instincts. Like, he doesn't care about people. Like, Trump doesn't care at all about people, but he cares about being popular. So if he thinks he can be popular by doing something like that, then he would do it. But the party around him wouldn't let him. So he would never support Medicare for all because they wouldn't let him. Kashif Mahamud says, I'm an Indian living in America. I volunteer for Bernie, but I cannot donate to him, unfortunately. Oh, cool. I didn't know that. I had no idea you could volunteer as somebody who's not an American. That's news to me. That's cool. Michael Brooks sends $1. Thank you, Michael. I'm still... J-Mac says, F Tulsi. I'm still reeling. I can't. Wow. I should have thought about that. Like, now that she did that, I should have already thought that she might do that based on her behavior so far. Incredible. Andrew T says, what would happen if the House was composed of economists, scientists, psychologists, philosophers, and engineers? It'd be very different. But here's the thing. I don't even really think that should be what happens. Like, that's who should be behind the politicians. Politicians should be listening to those people, but they don't necessarily need to be there as politicians. Like, oftentimes they're better used as, like, in their field, right? Do you really need an engineer? Like, let's be honest here. people in these fields, a lot of times, engineers especially, they're not all that great at being a politician. Like, they're not all that great at giving speeches, that kind of thing. You do need somewhat of like a community leader kind of figure to be a politician, but you need those people behind them. So while I hear your sentiment, and I agree that if that were the case, it would be much better. Just realistically, it wouldn't happen because it would be tough to get those people to actually run and win, because it requires a lot than just what their expertise is. Like, being a politician is super. I ran as a candidate once, and it was like 3 months of my life, and it was hard. Like, I'm telling you, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And if you don't have the team around you, it's hard. Radama says, David, read my super chat. If I can find it. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Even if the Senate does not convict, they must hold a vote for disqualification. Crimes don't disqualify running for president. The Senate does. Will you respond to somebody else? So yeah, the Senate won't convict. They must hold a vote for disqualification. Oh, well, if he's not going to be convicted, he's not going to be disqualified, right? Valerine, I don't know why I wasn't seeing a lot of these. Valerine Corsino said, impeachment, no big deal. Senate will not remove. Impeachment is a big deal. Senate won't remove. I agree with you. But it's a big deal because you have to hold the president to some kind of standard. And they're holding Trump here to a standard, even though it took way too long for them to do it. I don't know why I wasn't seeing some of these earlier. God. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open a different super chat page just to make sure I didn't miss anybody today, because I likely did. That Tulsi Gabbard did that still. She did it again. Voted present. Garbage. She fooled people this entire time. This whole time, these past 4 years have all been about her. Her ego, trying to get her name out there, trying to generate attention for herself. That's all it's been about. Unbelievable. Wow. How you cannot vote to impeach this president after clearly he did the things that they are impeaching him on, not even like in addition to tons more. I don't know what to say. Sorry, let me get to this super chat page.
When you have rational national priorities.
These are all being messed up. Okay. Alexander Gonzalez says impeachment is no big deal. Trump won't be removed. I think I just answered that. Radama says conviction is 2/3 supermajority vote. Disqualification is simple majority, 51%. Oh, interesting. Thank you for that information. I don't know if she's voting nay. Somebody's voting nay. There's a third Democrat voting nay, and I don't know who it is. Sorry. Trudy says she switched from present to nay. So there's still one present and 3 nay. Is Tulsi the nay, the third nay, or is she still voting present? It doesn't have the breakdown here. Chat's going way too fast for me to catch up. I'm just going through super chats to see if I missed anybody earlier. Okay, I think I saw. I think I got everybody else. Okay, who's this third nay?
And President Trump has now been impeached on Article 2, obstruction of Congress, which says that the president instructed administration officials not to comply with congressional subpoenas. During these two votes on the articles, President Trump has been speaking live at a political rally in Battle Creek, Michigan. That's live on C-SPAN 2. And in an unusual break from their usual process, Craig Kaplan, C-SPAN's Capitol Hill producer, tweets out that while Democrats are using their voting cards, Republicans are all headed to the clerks to register their votes in person.
So we're not getting a count. Well, impeached on both counts. There you go. I just want to hear this vote count. Crystal Ball says Tulsi Gabbard's going to be in studio tomorrow for the Hill Rising to explain her present vote. There you go. I'm not sure who the third nay is, if she's present on both. Here's the thing, though. I wish she wasn't going to be on the show. Tulsi Gabbard's doing this for attention, again. And she's doing it for a future job. Like, don't encourage this BS. I would just completely ignore her. Like cover the story, obviously, but don't get her on the show. I wouldn't get her on the show. You have to counteract these politicians that do things just for their own personal gain. Like, it's hard when it's a president. You kind of got to cover the president, but you don't have to bring Tulsi Gabbard on your show.
You can see voting yay there. One independent. That's just
that said, it's not my show.
Amash,
so
former
I don't have
Republican
a say. But if it were me, I wouldn't bring Tulsi on.
3 Democrats have voted no on Article 2. Jeff Van Drew, New Jersey, Colin Peterson, Minnesota, and Congressman Golden of Maine. And 1 voting present, again, Tulsi Gabbard.
Congressman Goldman. That appears to be a new no. Congressman Goldman? I don't know him at all. Of Maine. Oh, Golden? Oh, it was already announced he was going to do this. Split his vote on impeachment. Okay, I don't know why, but good luck to your run. He might be gone. So there you go. I mean, is this it? Is that kind of how this all ends? Is there no more to this? He's been impeached. It's over. I mean, it's not over, but in terms of the House portion of this, it's over. Then next year, some point it's going to go to the Senate, likely in January. I think that's what Mitch McConnell. It sounds like they want to get it done. They want to get it done quickly, and then they're obviously not going to convict. I missed some more super chats. Let me get these. All right, if you want super chats, get them in now. If you have questions, get them in now. The regular chat's going too fast now for me to pick anything out. Sorry, guys. I'm seeing lots of Tulsi sucks. I agree with you. But let me finish these super chats, get them all in, and then I guess I'm going to go because this appears to be done. Where did I stop here? Nina Lopez says message deleted. Thanks, Nina. Not sure why your message was deleted. Aaron says time to make a video tomorrow about Tulsi, please. Yeah, I guess I kind of have to at this point. Rob Sadler says this is a farce designed to force Bernie into Senate hearings while he is surging. Here's the thing, before I even finish your super chat, Bernie has the most volunteers on the ground. like, he's not going to be impacted by this too much. He just won't. Like, the support's already there. He has a lot of on-the-ground people. He has amazing, incredible endorsers like AOC who can bring out a crowd by herself. He doesn't need to be in Iowa while this is going on. So yeah, well, sure, it's not ideal. Like, obviously, it would be better if he was able to be in Iowa. It's not going to hurt Bernie all that much. It may hurt Elizabeth Warren. Her support is not as strong on the ground. I don't think it's going to hurt Bernie all that much, or at all, I should say. But going on, you say this is stupid and will not remove Trump from office. Well, obviously, yeah, it's not going to do that. But will remove Bernie from the campaign trail for a few weeks in Iowa, where he already has a ton of support, on the ground support. That's what matters. A lot of people dedicated to coming out to caucus for him. He has the most caucus goers right now in the state, already signed up. I'm not all that worried, to be quite honest with you. It's not like think about this logically. Are people going to be like, oh, well, I was going to vote for Bernie, but now that he has to be in the Senate for impeachment, well, okay, Joe Biden. That's not happening. And I guess you could say maybe he could have converted people who were swing voters, but again, he has a ton of on-the-ground people, volunteers, door knocking, supporters like AOC that bring out crowds by themselves. Michael Moore would bring out a crowd by himself. Like, he doesn't necessarily need to be there all the time. But Elizabeth Warren, it may actually hurt her. But I do appreciate your thoughts. And, I mean, that is something I've heard quite a bit that people are worried about. But I'm not too worried about it, honestly. Nina Lopez Ortiz says he can't still run in 2020, right? I'm not clear on that. Trump can still run. Yeah. Trump will still be able to run in 2020. I guess there's... I don't know. I don't know about this other disqualification vote with a simple majority in the Senate. But no, Trump, in all likelihood, Trump's going to be running in 2020. Pamela Drury says, this is BS. There is a one-party system, corporations, basically, but there are differences, as you can see from this vote, between the two parties. Not to mention on cultural issues, there are clear differences. Around the edges on some things there are differences. I mean, the House, the Democratic House has passed like a ton of stuff that Mitch McConnell has not taken up. While, the House here, the GOP are acting like, oh, we got to get back to work. This is a distraction. Democrats have been doing work the entire time. They're just pretending like they haven't been doing any work. Like usual, the GOP are full of crap. All right, let me get some more. I heard another super chat. Get them in now. So let me give you a hard deadline here, because the stream's like probably a minute or two behind for you, probably a minute. I'm gonna go dark unless anything else happens on screen. I'm gonna get out of here at 5:02. So right now it's 8:52 where I am in my timeline, but I'm gonna log off at 5:02. So get your stuff in. Boofire OG says if people need to make a pitch for Bernie with others, If people need to make a pitch for Bernie with others, they should show them his town halls. No one sells Bernie better than Bernie. I agree with you. They should also. So somebody the other day asked me.
On this vote, the yeas are 229, the nays are 198, present is 1. Article 2 is adopted.
She's trying to hold back a big grin. I guess that's it, right? Anyways, let me show you. If you have like, especially, your parents, grandparents that are kind of, they don't support Bernie, or people that say, oh, what has Bernie even done?
Without objection, the motion to reconsider Article 1 is laid on the table. Without objection, the motion to reconsider Article 2 is laid on the table. Pursuant to Section 7B of House Resolution 758, the House stands adjourned till 9 a.m. tomorrow.
There you go. As I was saying,
you've heard from a majority of the members of the House of Representatives today on the impeachment of Donald Trump. We want to hear from you. Here's how to get a hold of us. 202 is the area code. 748-8921 for Republicans, 748-8920 for Democrats, and 748-8922 for all others. We'll begin taking those calls as soon as we can. In just a few seconds or minutes, Nancy Pelosi will be holding a press conference. We'll be bringing that to
I'm not
you
going to watch
live.
that.
Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is also scheduled to hold a news conference, and we will bring that to you as well. Now, there's been an article in the Washington Post and in Politico that states that, quote, a group of House Democrats is pushing Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other leaders to withhold the articles of impeachment against President Trump, and that would potentially delay a Senate trial for months. The notion of impeaching Trump and holding the articles in the House has gained traction among some on the political left as a way of potentially forcing Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to conduct a trial on more favorable terms for Democrats. That was in the Washington Post earlier. It's also been reported by Politico. And here is a tweet by David Drucker of the Washington Examiner. He got a hold of Mitch McConnell. Quote, I'm in no hurry, said Senate Majority Leader McConnell when asked if he cared if the House decides to sit on articles of impeachment rather than immediately sending to Senate, as some House Dems have urged. That's reporting by the Washington Post and Politico. While we're waiting for Speaker Pelosi to come to the podium, we want to hear from you. Sherry in Hercules, California, Jesus, Democrat, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm not hearing these people. This video right here. So if you're, this is, how would I share this possibly? Okay. Well, if you can dig into Bernie's tweets, you can do advanced search. November 20th, he posted this. So if anybody tells you, what has Bernie done? What has he accomplished? How can I vote for Bernie? How is he going to fight for me? Here's a little piece of history.
Bernie's election to Congress transformed the political landscape of Vermont.
People think about Vermont as a very blue state, but at the time Bernie was first running, that seat had been held by Republicans for decades.
He became the major opposition to the Republican candidate, and he ultimately won that race.
His message to the people is always the same, is that the rural communities are the heart and soul of America. He may be originally from New York, but he certainly understands the ground that I stand on.
An independent who has shown growing power in recent years.
Bernie's work in the 90s earned him the term Amendment King.
We passed amendment after amendment after amendment.
He was so effective at bringing together coalitions to support the needs of all Vermonters.
During a 10-year period of Republican control in the U.S. House, he passed more amendments by recorded vote than any other member.
And he was able to get support for things like community health centers.
Bernie has, of course, always tried to get a universal health care system. He's done the next best thing.
One of his amendments got $100 million for community health centers. He talks to them about the real economic issues facing them.
Bernie's always been aware of the value of the family farm, and he's always stood up for good food and the people that produce it. The Dairy Compact was one of the biggest ones, but that was one of the issues that gave fair prices to farmers that we could survive on.
Which really solidified an economic basic quality of life for our dairy farmers.
A number of companies like IBM in Vermont were trying to create what's called a cash balance pension system, which harms older and older workers.
That were being discriminated against based on their age. We need to save their pensions. And so we launched a big fight. Restored $320 million in pension benefits to 130,000 workers. It took a movement of IBM workers to demand that IBM stop cutting their pension benefits.
Bernie was always right dead on the money, and as compassionate as any person I've ever run into.
People have faith in Bernie.
If they know that Bernie Sanders fights for them, that he's fighting for their family, that their lives can be better if the policies that Bernie is advocating are put into place.
And Bernie is a person that I feel will bring the whole country together.
Bernie stood up for our children, health care, our environment, and Bernie reaches people across the political spectrum, and that's how he wins.
There you go. And usually the biggest argument that people try to make against Bernie Sanders, oh, how can Bernie possibly win? He's so far left. He has a history of of actually working with both parties and getting things done. He was the amendment king. Not to mention, this year, the war powers resolution when it came to Yemen. I mean, he got that through both parties. It was only vetoed by Trump. So, like, if you're talking about getting actual work done, Bernie Sanders has done it. Let me finish these last two super chats, or the last whatever super chats are left. Let me do those and then get out of here. Let me play this in the background as I look for them.
Also, looking at him and seeing and using him as an example for when they make the decision in the Senate. So,
Austin, who's running in the Republican primary up there?
Okay, boring. Where was I? Praveen has message deleted, but thank you for your super chat, Praveen. J-Mac, people in Yemen dying and children on the southern border in cages not impeachable. Yeah, I agree with you there. It should have been impeachable. But an establishment figure, privileged son getting in controversy is the final straw. BS. Good night, my Canadian king. Thank you, J-Mac. Captain Caveman says, consciousness cannot experience its own unconsciousness. Therefore, all that remains is consciousness. I'm with you. Maybe one day I'll get a little more into my thoughts on consciousness and all that sort of thing. But I know what you're saying, and I'm with you. All right. Was that another super chat, or am I just hearing things? No, that was another one. Last one right here. Andrew Riggs says, Nina Turner is a likely pick for VP. If so, do you think he should announce it to help pull more votes to the southern state primaries? That's a good question. I don't think so, just because it comes off as presumptuous, and I don't know. Then again, there's an argument to be made that he should be a fighter and really just push for it and like forget about what the typical rules are. That's a good question. I just don't know. I haven't thought enough about it, but I wouldn't be completely against it if I heard the right argument. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody. This has been a fantastic live stream. Every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, I do a live stream, as you can see, the end of this one. RationalNational.com/join. That's the Patreon page, or you can become a member on YouTube, as I've seen many people do today. And otherwise, follow me on Twitter at David Dole. You see right there. All right. Can't see my mouse, but it's behind me. But right there. All right. Thanks for coming. Tulsi sucks. See you later.